Cool. How you doing tonight?
Beautiful. Perfect. See, I'm just over here muttering to myself as I'm just kind of getting everything all fired up. How have you been?
Not too bad. It's been a long week. My AC went out and we're already hitting 80 degrees here in Charleston. So I went to work today thinking, oh, well, at least the AC will be on there. And of course, it's broken at the office today. So,
oh, man.
Yeah. So a little rough trying to get anything accomplished.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'll admit I can't quite relate to that. That sounds horrendous, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's the curse of having moved down here is just, it's 80, 90 degrees quick and 100% humidity 9/10 of the year. So, some people thrive in it, and will literally sleep with the windows open and 100% humidity year round and love it. And I'm sitting there going, but my artwork is literally curling on the walls, from all this moisture. How can anybody deal with this crap? But it's my own damn fault for coming here. How's your week been?
It's been fun. It's been fun.
I mean, the videos you've been doing this last couple of weeks are great, man. You're getting some really good interviews and unboxings.
Yeah, but if anything, that it falls right in line actually with what we were kind of looking to discuss this evening, and I'm sure you can understand it. You can oversaturate it, and so unfortunately, I had a bit of a tech issue early in the week, and that slowed down when I wanted to post things, and then you almost don't want to in the weekend all of a sudden slam everybody with too much, which happened. Yako, how are you?
Hey, man.
What's up?
Nice to have you. We've got Downer Energy there as well.
Hey, guys.
Coming in right now.
Sorry about that, guys. I'll admit I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, and I'm actually a slow learner. So I'm getting things going up here just to make sure I can watch the YouTube comments as we're rolling.
You're good. Hey, thank you for putting this all together, man. This is all stellar stuff. I mean, if you aren't tech savvy or anything, you're putting in the work, so that's all good.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I really do. And I appreciate you guys. Honestly, I think it'll come up a lot tonight because the reality is I believe that Downer Energy, you've got a lot of great resources regarding streaming platforms, podcasting, all that stuff. You seem right up your alley. And actually, as such, design has quite the background to dealing with people in marketing. So I think we're gonna have a nice little this evening. I know for a fact there's people hopping in, so might kind of give that a quick little second. But yeah, link was easy to get in. You guys had no problem. I love it.
All easy, all good things.
I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I've got this really bad habit. I've got 3 phones usually at all times. I've got a bad habit of leaving one on Instagram, walking away, going to my laptop, checking Instagram. I got locked out of Instagram like 3 times today because I kept thinking I was a random person sneaking into my account. I was like, how can you be commenting and posting and messaging this? You must be 3 people.
Not right.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fun while coordinating everything.
Am I the only person thinking that 3 cell phones is very 90s of you?
What is the 3 cell phone? What's the point of having 3? What do you do with 3, man?
So the reality is that I'll almost always have a device hooked up to one of my computers, sending and receiving files depending on what's rendering or finishing on one.
Sick.
At the other hand, I always need to have the other one checking emails and a lot of times networking with individuals through different social networking platforms to make sure that they're getting what they need. So I'm I'm usually using them as actually like transportation of data. More
Hmm.
than
Well, I'm glad you clarified, because I've just had this mental image of you just running around in a trench coat with various burner phones tucked in the pockets all day.
No, just action figures. Alrighty. So I think, like I was saying earlier, we've got a huge group here tonight. We'll try and keep the introductions a little bit shorter than normal, just because of how many of us there are. A couple familiar faces as well, but Epoxy Crusader is actually a brand new face. So even if we can start with S. Suchi, who would be on my left, if you don't mind starting off, give us a little rundown, and we will just kind of go down and around if that works.
Yeah. I'm Scott Suki. I'm just getting into the toy biz. I have been a designer, art director, and creative consultant for going on 25 years now. So my disclaimer is I am not officially in marketing, but I've worked very closely, pretty much my entire career with marketing and advertising people. So hopefully some of that's rubbed off on me, and I've become more knowledgeable for it, and actually know what I'm talking about.
That's our bare minimum expectation, is we at least know something about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan, also known as Kerf. I make armature kits, which the orders from the March batch just went out. I'm also sculpting action figures for the movie Prospect, not for them, but from them, from the movie Prospect. Yeah, I kind of do it in the style of Kenner, and now I've kind of passed the Kenner phase of what they did at the shop, and now I'm trying to figure the hollowing of the torso out myself at the moment. That's why there's been a delay, if anyone's curious. Next.
Echo, I'm gonna get you to hop in there, man.
Is that me? Is that my name? Hey. All right. So I'm Cody, or Downer Energy. I worked at an ad agency, actually, as my first job when I was in college, doing advertising and branding as the on-staff engineer slash technical consultant on what was possible when they were doing stuff. So had some light exposure to the branding and marketing side of things there, and then worked with in general, working as a engineer at lots of startups. I work with marketing teams making things happen. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I make toys, pretty recent to the scene, and here I am.
What's up? I'm Yucko Toys, or Abraham, it says right there on my thing. I work for a nonprofit, and I have helped several nonprofits do branding and marketing for their little whole world of nonprofit stuff. And so that's actually one of my favorite things to do for Yucko Toys, branding and marketing and stuff. So.
Do you want to jump in, Epoxy? Yes, I've been here a bunch, so I'm just kind of letting everyone else talk.
You don't mind? Hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Matus. I'm from the Epoxy Crusader profile on Instagram. I myself are a philosopher and a visual artist, and had a master's on art history. But a brief moment, I worked for a company that had a product licensing from Warner Brothers. So I'm not that used to branding and marketing, but I've been living through that through my whole career as an artist, and a lot of the jobs I've done. I work briefly in the music industry as well, in an online music platform that was something like iTunes. So I'm not that good with marketing and branding, but I have some notions about it. Right now, I do toys and bootleg resin and art toys, because it's what I like the most, but it's not my day job.
I'm Aaron, aka Neil Nostalgia Toys. I used to be a graphic designer, a web designer, UX designer, so I've done all the design things. Had a Amazon business for like 15 years. been making customs off and on over the years, and now I'm doing currently doing 80s vintage barbarian style figures with a focus on like interchangeable parts. So that's my jam.
Ruby, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate everybody hopping in there. I just checked the mic. It was coming in soft. Yeah, actually, epoxy crusader, if you don't mind, actually kind of it was a little faint on my end, but it was coming in clear. It wasn't breaking up or anything. Thank you for pointing that out.
Do you hear me better now?
Might just be a little soft spoken. That's all.
Okay.
Not a problem. Alrighty, so of course, every time I like to preface anybody who guys end up watching these and would like to join, of course, always feel like you can hop in, DM any of us that you see here, personally message any of us. And of course, none of our views or opinions actually encompass that of the entire toy community. We're a couple people that actually just want to meet and talk about what we've seen or experiences we've had. So always like to start that off with that one. Today we're doing branding and marketing. So of course, as we just kind of got a bit of a rundown from everybody, I think everybody has a little bit of a dabble in that. And of course, most of us being entrepreneurs at this point, we've had to experience that. In your opinion, what is a brand to you? Like what does that really encompass? When do you go from being somebody who's like maybe has a hobby or an interest to all of a sudden brand? What is that?
I don't know. For me, it was like I'm just gonna jump in. Does anybody want to do the raise your hand thing? How do we want to do that? So we're trying to like be more organized.
I think you're good to take it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like it's tough to know like when you try to become a brand, right? Like because my Instagram account was just my own for like years, and I was posting stuff, and in addition to like the typical life stuff and what you had for dinner and all that, and when I decided to like kind of take the toy art stuff more seriously, or just like my personal art in general, well, whatever that might be, it made me think about like, well, how do I want to present this, right? And like to me, like a brand is it's like a persona, right? It's not you, it's like a version of you, or like a company or whatever. So like you're trying to, because a brand is like an image, right? It's like you're trying to present a view of a thing you're creating, or a company you're trying to create an impression on your viewers, your fans, your customers, the public, etc. So I think a brand is something that tries to just create this like this image or emotion or feeling in the public or your audience, right? And you're trying to shape what that image and feeling is, and that's kind of what a brand is to me.
Yeah, I think I agree there. I mean, to me, like what a brand is, like I think that a lot of it comes down to like just the consistent messaging that you're giving out as like that entity, right? Like so encompassing an entity and like having a consistent like form that entity like takes when messaging outward, right? Like that is like the encompassment of like a brand, right? And I think for like a lot of like what I do, I mean like honestly, a lot of the hobbies and things that I've done have like started with a brand, right? Of like I've actually just like imagined like a logo and like a color or like a typeface or something, and been like that'd be a cool like X, right? That would make a cool t-shirt company, right? And like literally, it's like I have an interest in it. This is, I mean, like the downer energy. I was like literally helping my girlfriend like put together a pot, like it was a broken like cheap clay pot, and we were like putting it together with like Mod Podge, and I was like do you want to like make like resin stuff? And she was like, I mean, I don't know, we can make like jewelry or something. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. And I was like, I literally like I just thought like a second ago, like downer energy, like we always talk about like downer vibes and stuff like that, and I was like, just downer energy. And I looked it up, like dot energy is like a top level domain. So I was like, I could probably just buy that, and just like bought it right there, and then was like that. I mean, like that's it. Like it comes from like there, and I was like, that's like kind of our vibe, right? We're like pretty low key, right? So I was like, this is like, sad things, bright colors, downer energy, like that's it. Like that's the whole game. And like I feel like that's a lot of like smaller brands do that, and like they try and like I really like when smaller brands do that. I think like Fret Brett's stuff where it's like all the marker work and stuff like that is like super cool, like, and it's like it's so consistent in like what it is, even though it's like super simplistic, but it has like a super similar vibe and a super similar message outward, like consistently, right? That's what makes his like brand, even though it's like their name, right? So that's my thoughts there.
I read something really interesting a couple of years ago, and I think it was in a branding marketing book from Alina Wheeler, if I'm remembering right. But it's something that really, registered with me and really expanded on the definition of branding and made a few distinctions, which I thought about it for a second. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. It was, you have your identity, your company's identity, and then a brand. Your brand is something completely different. Your identity is your logo, your colors, your fonts, your the voice that your company identity speaks with, your online presence, the product, and all that together is your identity. The brand is, sorry, dog in the background. The brand is the culmination of all those and how they register and are remembered by your customers. And it's how they view you. The brand itself is something you have no control over, except to hope to push it in the direction that you want it to go. But it's purely how your customers see and remember you, and the experience of, engaging with you and your product. So, and I always thought that was really interesting to make that distinction, that, you can do everything you can to put forth that persona. However, all the best, made plans, it still is up to your customers to decide how they feel about you and how they see you.
I read a really interesting comment semi-recently somewhere. It doesn't even matter where, I guess. And it alludes to that, but on an individual level. And it was something to the effect of like the version of you that you perceive yourself is a single entity, right? And the version of you that lives in everyone in their mind, your partner, your parents, your friends, your siblings, like they're all different. And it takes that to an extreme. So like that everyone has a brand of you that lives in their mind. And so that the company is like you said, it's that perception, and you're just hoping to shape that perception into something like good.
Perception is reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't.
You mind if I go Yako and then Epoxy Crusader?
Oh, well, if you don't mind, Abraham, or go.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I've been thinking of this like for this whole week. It kind of worries me because I actually have a friend that is some sort of my Instagram coach, and she always gives me tips and advices on the things I post and how to do it. And I was asking her that I have this worry that it seems like every time you open a profile on any platform, that becomes instantly like a brand. It's like Aaron said, it's this persona that you introduce to somebody or to everybody, and all these people you introduce your brand to have these different ideas of how this works, or in the end, who are you? And that worries me a lot because in my case, all this thing about the epoxy crusader, it's more like a hobby, more less than a brand. But there comes this moment when you have to think it as a brand. And the big question my friend asked me was, well, how do you introduce your brand? How do you introduce this persona to the other people? And what do you want them to think about you? That's I think that's the whole knot of all this thinking, all the versions of all the meaning it could have in other people's mind once you introduce yourself as a brand with the things you do and the things you make, especially because all these people who you are introduced to expect something from you. From that moment on, they expect something, and they get to get used to the things they expect from you. So that worries me a lot, because I feel like even my own personality has not a straight line or a straight square form. Nevertheless, to think that in a brand or my brand or someone's brand, I think that's for me. It's the disadvantage. It's like the imaginary wall I get crush upon every time I think of this as a brand. I think it's less stressing when you actually work with a brand, because the brand itself it's there and they have all the engine to keep running. But when you become the brand itself, the whole responsibility of who are you and how you introduce you to other people, it's I think it's more stressing.
I was watching the new Young Rock show the other night, and in that first episode, he says something really great about as he got older and further into his career, he's still always working that persona, but he learned the best thing was let the persona be me, just turned up to 11, which I think is, it's a great philosophy of here's how you can put forth your best self, your work, your brand, your product, and not have to worry about, am I keeping to the strict definition? As long as you're true to yourself, just do your best out there. And that is a good solid foundation, for your brand and what you're doing, and that, people tend to respond to, and that's what everybody really likes. So is when you're being honest to yourself and all your customers.
Love it. Yucko, do you mind giving us a little bit of a shout out for what you're feeling about that?
Yeah. When I first started, I made the shittiest toy. I don't know what I was making, but it's like this little orca with a half bloody stump. And I didn't know how to design backers and didn't know what to do. I didn't know what my name was going to be. And a friend of mine was like, oh, let's talk about it. And my name was birthed out of stepping in dog shit barefoot. Because I stepped in it and I was like, that's Yucko. And on the phone, he was like, bro, that's your action figure name. You need to separate yourself from your actual name. And so I thought that, well, great, that's fine. But I went into it thinking that it was colors and logos and all that stuff. And so I designed this brand, brand leaflet thing that has I always use this specific blue and this yellow. I always use this font. I always use this. Yeah. And so I kept doing that. And then I think just this year I had a logo designed after a year already doing this. But I living into my who I am to go along with that. I decided I wanted to make toys that you wouldn't buy or you wouldn't see anywhere, that look awful. And so that's why that's where I went into that. And so I try to live into that brand more. And that's where you get some of the weird toys that I create. Hopefully they're done well, but they're just of weird things that you just wouldn't want on your shelf. And so I don't know, I'm kind of both. I focus heavily. Go ahead. I know, Crumbs, you got a couple of me on your shelf. I focus so heavily on being very concise and very if it's this blue, it's always this blue. We don't change anything. And I get so caught up in that, but it's really about like, man, Yucko is my brand. I need to live into who I am into that. So it's kind of both. I play on both sides of that.
I kind of love the idea of the anti-product.
Yeah.
Well, did you have anything to add in on that? We were just talking about our ideas of what a brand is to us.
I was thinking about this earlier in the week, and I think we had touched on some of these topics in our earlier discussions. But I think brand is an experience you have with a product, and it is experience you have with the people who represent that brand. I think there's a degree that not only you're and for us who are on Instagram, the content we write in our posts, not only our imagery, but it's something where someone else can say, oh yeah, I recognize that, that's kerf loss, or that's Yucko. Like that's it's something that even with the logo not there, you recognize it. And I think that recognition is an effect of the brand. It's also down to your packaging, your customer service, your and I've been thinking about the customer service level because I've just put out this shipment, and so I'm thinking about the messaging that I have in all that I send out to all the people who got a kit, and I'm thinking, all right, I should be consistent with this, or not necessarily intentionally consistent, but consistent in that I am thorough as I am with my posts, to pay attention to the details. That's kind of my brand. In some ways, it is to over-explain something, and in the hopes that there's some value there. But that's the kind of experience that people have with my brand. I think is they come away learning something new, and maybe getting tired and not even reading all the way through because there's too much. I think it's the experience you have with the product. It's the feeling you get when you open the package. It's I think we were talking about Apple when we were last talking about brand kind of concepts, or about packaging. All those things combine to make your brand.
I just want to say I think you accomplished that very well too. I mean, I think when we were talking, we like seamlessly went from like talking about just normal stuff that we were just talking about into like, all right, so your shipment, like a paragraph about like the armature kit, and I was like, it felt very kerf loss. It was very good. It was on brand. Like it was good.
Yeah.
I'm going to chime in because a couple of you have said a couple of things that personally for me, just like they really hit marks. I know I thought I was going to kind of zip this time, but the reality is that you mentioned it's not really the identity. A lot of times it's actually like what ends up being the perception of the customers and everybody else as they're dealing with that brand or the image. From the moment I entered into the toy scene, a lot of the dudes I talked to, when I tell them like, you are your brand, you're your brand. And a lot of times, like all of a sudden, like this like little light bulb would go off in their brain where it was kind of like, well, yeah, because like I guess I have a big cartel and I do have a logo and I've actually got all this other stuff designed that goes with it. I guess me as a person that you're interacting with is part of my brand. I think Rainbow Yawn does a fantastic job of it. The fact of the matter is that he has built a persona and characters into his lives. He has made himself somebody that people enjoy actually hearing and listening to ramble while he's working. He has really built like a character of mystery out in this countryside. In my opinion, that kind of all plays into his brand. But of course, the product that he sells is actually a separate entity from his brand. Now, of course, when we see his lives and we see how much devotion he puts into that work, we're seeing that his product is actually a representation of that brand. But the brand is actually what he has built. Like, in my opinion, it's actually the way that he's actually marketed himself. to everybody else out there in the scene. And what I also kind of find interesting about that is I'm actually in a bit of a different spot than a lot of everybody else in this community. Reality is that I've done the branding thing for myself. And then of course you have a bit of free time and you really enjoy toys and you start collecting them and doing unboxings and then putting content. And next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, I'm a bit of a brand again. And at the end of the day, just like you were saying, you can't really change the perceptions, but I feel it's very important to be authentic, because even if you might be aggressive towards or in the mindset of some other people, or you might not click with other people, that's okay. You can't please everybody. You need to find the demographic that is yours and almost hone in on that demographic, because otherwise you're not being authentic. And I think that's really important when it does come to branding, because we also saw what happened with, I believe it was Popeyes, when they made very like declarative statements of where they stood on particular political statements. And suddenly like that was a very clear statement on their brand for a lot of people. I'm in a bit of a strange spot where I understand like I'm abrasive for a lot of individuals. So for my content, I realize like when I'm editing it a lot of times and you see all those chops, that's because I realize I talk too much. Crumbs doesn't shut up. And the reality is that when I'm watching it back afterwards, I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be about the artist. And if somebody's actually coming to watch this, they could watch this dude with a mustache ramble all they want. They're kind of here to listen to the dude who actually makes the art. So a lot of times that's where I find I kind of luck out, because even though I'm my brand and I can definitely damage my brand by being abrasive, I try and really shine the light on whatever brand I'm actually discussing that week.
And I think that's one of those important things, just like, and I think we kind of mentioned it for a half second earlier, was throughout all the avenues of branding and marketing ourselves, you do have to be cognizant of there is such a thing as overkill, that you are just, hammering that message about, you as an artist or your product or whatever, just way too much, and people will just get burnt out real quick and turn away from you and start ignoring you. And that's the number one thing. Obviously, nobody wants that to be the result. And that's where I've at least always tried to coach any of my clients that, yeah, you need to constantly reinforce the brand, but not so much as that you're firing off 85 Instagrams a day, and flooding people's inboxes and, that sort of thing that, people just get fatigued.
I'm going to chime in one last time there, just because that touched on a point we were actually talking about earlier. The reality is issues today or this week, and then that ends up leading to you being behind on the scheduling of your posts. And then, of course, we look at the weekend that Crumbs now has, and how the heck do you actually properly plan any of those questions or Q&As to let anybody know what's happening? It becomes a big old mess. And the reality is that that's what happens with your posts. They just get lost. Artist I was talking to today where I was like, man, because of that tech issue, yours is dropping in the week coming, because otherwise it's going to get buried under the weekend. I just can't post it all of a sudden on a Friday night. It's going to get just buried under the live chats, the Q&As. And that actually happens when artists overpost. There's times you see it and you're like, I thought I already liked this. And the issue is, sure, we've all experienced where you have liked something and your like is taken away because Instagram did a weird thing. I don't know if that happens to me. My likes disappear sometimes. So if your likes disappear, and then on top of that, though, you're not even sure if your like is disappearing because the person is posting so much that you can't keep track, or they're doing a claim drop. You don't even know what's even still available because there's so much being posted. Overkill. Dangerous.
It's a general problem with social media, though. Just like so to use Instagram as a good example, because that's like the thing we have in common, right? It's like there's like this sea of things people are posting because we're all following probably hundreds of people. I follow at least 1,000 people, and my actual like in real life friends is probably like 1% of that. So the rest of it is actually like accounts I want to follow, but then you're seeing like through this little porthole into like that sea and you'll never see all of it. And like you said, Crumbs, like stuff just gets buried. It's inevitable. Like you can't avoid it. There's all these tools available to help you like schedule to post at the right time, but like doesn't fucking matter. It's still gonna get buried. Like, so I don't know what the solution is, but you're right.
So, I'm actually going to use that as a bit of a segue, though, because I don't want to focus on too long on this one subject. I'm going to use it as a little bit of a segue, because we actually have somebody who mentioned in the comments. They were saying, once you have the reputation or brand, do you feel obligated to maintain that? And if yes, do you feel like the restrictions or limits that? Sorry, do you feel like that restricts or limits what you produce?
So to me, like I think honestly, like if you're authentic with it, right? Like you're not restricted or limited, right? If you've invented a persona to be the brand that is like my like brand consists of like fonts and colors that I've picked, right? And then like I'm just me using that as a mask to interact with like a specific community. And I have like several brands, like I'm like an independent game developer too, like and like that's what some people know me as, right? It's the other half of my time gets spent doing, right? And like that's a completely separate thing with a totally separate like persona associated with it. But I mean, like I interact with them just the same. One video call is talking exactly the same, right? And so there's no like limitations in what you can do, I think, as long as you approached it from the outset with like an authentic mindset. If you crafted like a brand language document like purely out of like artifice, right? It is like 100% plastic, then yeah, you're gonna hit a wall at some point, I think. At least if you're an individual. If you're a company, right, like you use that brand to mask the actions of like the actions and the responses and the outcomes of like hundreds of people potentially, right? Thousands, right? But if you're just an individual, all of a sudden it's like it's just you. You're not using it to hide anything, right? So I think you're gonna run into problems with that.
Yeah, you're being you, and allowing yourself to grow and change as an artist, as a brand. As long as you're being true to yourself, I think most consumers, especially in the arts, they look for that, and they appreciate the fact that, oh, this artist is growing and changing and trying different things as they go along. Because as an artist, yeah, you are, if not at least part of the brand. You're might be the entire brand, but that's why people are coming to you, is for you and your art, which is an extension of you. So as long as you're being true to yourself, I don't think most people would ever be like, oh my God, what's going on with this brand here? It's like, well, no, it's an artist and their product, and it's growing and changing and hopefully evolving as they go along. So I think personally, when you look and see particular artists that, find just one thing and stick with it for 50 years, and don't allow themselves to grow and evolve, then personally, I start questioning, well, how authentic, is this brand now? Is it just purely trying to, follow this one particular path, and how honest is it anymore to itself or to its consumers?
One thing I picked up from the question was about the frequency of the product, and I think of perhaps someone said it a while ago that said like Rainbow Yawn is always doing live videos. And that kind of statement there, I think, is a statement of his brand, or an aspect of his brand, that he does live videos and he does them a lot. For my own work, I've had to been forced to take a 2-week break to address all the other work that I have outside of toy making, and so I felt like that's. To me, it's hurt my brand because I haven't been posting as much, and I imagine people are wondering what's happened, why hasn't progress been made, and because I feel like it's that frequency, the consistency that people count on as an audience who are following somebody, kind of meet that expectation of either a daily or every other day or whatever frequency has been your frequency, is just a way to keep people engaged with the brand and not lose interest if there's some long delay. And I think when I think about that, I think of also some of the people I follow on YouTube where they make an effort to say, hey, I'm going to be late on this video because they are aware of their audience and they don't want people to lose interest and forget about them. So yeah, that kind of notion of the frequency or consistency of your product, your content, is another aspect of the brand.
I've got to say, I would say he has used lives to build his brand. His brand is not built on the fact he does lives. And I would say that you've built a large audience by displaying your brand, by using the tool lives. But I would not say that IG lives have become a part of the Kerf brand, that I expect lives from Kerf or else he's lost that part of his brand. For me, it's more the fact that it's like, no, I was able to learn what Kerf is through those lives. And that a brand story for me. The consistency and where they want to take that journey going forward is what they want to choose to do with that audience, following whatever path they've decided to carve for themselves. I would even say you see tons in TikTok. Somebody will actually become a sensational meme poster, but all of a sudden, once he gets like 1 million followers, you find out he's a rapper. What? Oh, he posts on Instagram is his rap album, but he's got a 50 million followers on TikTok. And so it's kind of like, well, were you expecting him to drop more memes? What he did with the platform going forward was up to him. But I would say consistency is very important. And once you make that consistency, it's very respectful to the people that you believe to be your followers to try and at least maintain that consistency.
If I may talk a little about this, I'm feeling like I'm in this void of gambling between consistency and the expectations of the followers, because sometimes you need to post like regularly, but then again those posts get just drowned in the sea of posts, and you need to redo those posts, and then you end up like making people mad because as you say, you say I've already liked this thing, so why it's posting it again? And for me it's like gambling. Do I post too much? Do I post too less? What to do? Talking about, I agree with what Cody says about the limits of the platform and that stuff. I feel kind of limited there, because even though I perceive myself as true to myself, to my brand or so-called brand, I still doesn't have this particularly line that people can see through my posts. You see these guys that always do Motu costumes or Simpsons costumes or Star Wars costumes or Mutant Ninja Turtles costumes, but I do whatever I like. My friend was asking me that same thing this week. Well, what's your line of work? And I was like, I don't know. I do mashups of the things I like and the things I imagine and the characters I love from a lot of franchises. So even myself, I'm not able to say, this is my post, because I don't see the straight line, and in that way I feel myself a little limited. But by the expectations of the followers, by the expectations of the platform, and some sort of by the expectations of the community, because it's, in my particular case, being the new guy in the hood, it's difficult to engage with other people because they always ask this: what do you do? Oh, man, I do stuff. I do toys. Wow, what kind of toys? Well, the toys I like, the things I like to see. But suddenly the things I like to see don't end up in a category where everybody can just signal them as mine, I feel that limit and that gambling in this board of drowning posts, line, the personality you need to create behind this person. Fun fact, I haven't had this problem before. When I was figure more as a visual artist, I used to do a lot of scanography and photography and some plastic. And I had no problem. I have a particular line, a gesture that was very identified by people. But now in this scene of toy making and resin and art toy, I feel just like drowned in all the possibilities and all the statements about following a straight line or a square way of producing my stuff. I don't know if you feel the same. But...
Well, I would say this brings us on point with actually we have in the agenda even, and we had put up as a discussion point, is what's the brand's goal? So at the end of the day, like once you have a brand, what is the goal of your brand? Are you selling a product? Are you selling an experience? What would you guys say?
I struggled with that for a really long time. When I decided to make the conversion from a personal, general account to like, okay, I want this to be more focused on toys, so I'm gonna stop posting life stuff or whatever. I think I spent like, I don't know, a month or so thinking about different names and possibilities and stuff, and I ended up settling on Nostalgia Toys for a few different reasons. And so this kind of goes back to what Epoxy was saying, and it goes back to the viewer question and to what you're asking now, Crumbs, about like, what is the point of this? Like, what am I doing, right? And my long-term thought is that, like Epoxy said, I don't want to feel pigeonholed into this one thing. And we've talked about this on a past chat, where like, so I wanted something that kind of evoked the feeling I was looking for, but I didn't want it to be like specific to like Motu. I didn't want it to be specific to a certain line or a certain style. So I settled on this name, and I even have a tagline. It's Classic Toys Reimagined. So like the idea is taking things, my memories, my impressions, and like putting a modern spin on them, right? Whether it's just injecting something that's me into this thing. And right now it's Motu. In the future it might be, I'd said this before, it might be cyberpunk, it might be westerns, it might be dinosaurs. Like, it's just whatever I enjoy, and I just hope that the fans, do too. And so I picked this name that was like, I tried to encapsulate everything that I thought into this one thing. And it's hard because if your brand's too specific, then like that viewer question, you get stuck. And then, so you have to think about like, what is my like overall idea, my plan, my feeling, my thought that I want to convey to like the viewer. So I talk with my hands a lot. It's hard not to do it. So that's just like that's the thought process that I put into it for myself. Because I wanted it to be something that I was happy with, that I could also like, it could evolve. Because like right now it's like the synth wave, 80s style graphics and all that and cosmic stuff. But I wanted the name to be flexible enough that if I wanted to restyle it into like, Old West styling for like this other line, like I could do that. And the name would translate, or that it would carry over or whatever. So that's just kind of like a rough way that I thought about it just for my own use.
Will it always be selling a product though? Because I guess that's what I mean is, at the end of the day, if you're a brand, if I'm Cheez-Its, I want you to friggin' think Cheez-Its are the best damn cracker ever. And when you go to the grocery store, you're not even questioning another cracker on the shelf. Versus if, like, a lot of times I hear, well, I'm creating to create. If I can make a sale, that's the cherry on top. Better not hear you cry when the claim sale doesn't go perfect, because you did it to create. And apparently, even if you didn't find Instagram ever, you never made a brand or a store, you'd be creating regardless. So the fact that you created something should be the rejoice and like the celebration and the success. But if we're all saying we're a brand, what are we all selling? Are we selling an experience? Are we selling a product? Are we looking to actually just like tell people, educate people?
So I actually have an interesting, I think, thought on that. Maybe is that like for independent artists, like the idea of the brand, there's this like simulation versus like simulacra situation happening here, right? Where like as an individual, it's like really hard to be a brand, right? There's not like a brand that you are doing, but you are like essentially you're emulating, right? You are the simulacra of like what a branded entity is, right? And so all of your actions act as like an emulation of what a brand does. But I think the intent and what actually occurs within like an individual artist's like activities on social media is like almost fully removed from what a brand's intent is. Like actually, so I think last time I talked about Pendragon as well. Pendragon's like latest drop stuff. It's like awesome, spectacular, but it's also like factory made and it's related to another like book product, like a comic that they're doing. Like it's a whole line of things. And that to me is like, you know, and I think they're like 20 something thousand followers, right? Like that is like a real brand, right? Where it's like most of the people here have like 1,000 ish. And I think most of the sales that happen are to other artists, like we talked about, right? And it's more like, yeah, I mean, I'm at like 200, right? Like it's 1,000 and under, right? But it's like most of the sales go to other artists. Most of it is like essentially like deferred swaps, right? Where it's like we're giving each other money to like move product around the community, right? As far as I've seen, which is like cool. But like, I think the idea of the brand is like, to me, it's really it's actually part of like, are you selling the experience? I don't know, but I think as like the social media entity, as like the entity you are, you're LARPing, right? You're live action role playing like you're a toy company, right? And I think that's part of the fun as like an artist, right? Like I think it's fun to like make the thing, have a brand, and like sell it as a product, even though it's like, man, I'm just like pouring goop into rubber in my garage and like then selling it for, you know, nebulous amounts, right? Like I mean, like I think some of my toys that cost like $6.66 just cause like it's funny, right? It's like I don't why, you know, like making a backer card, it's like spray adhesive and like card like with chipboard, right? Like that's what we like, cool. But it's not like, you know, it's a weird again, it's like it's literally like the simulacra of like an actual product and brand. Like I think that's part of the fun for me. Like the brand is the flavor that you get to put on like the art that you're doing, right? The art itself has its messaging, its things, and the brand is the fun flavor you get to act on externally. So
I agree. I'm glad that you have that cool flavor about the fun of doing things. I'm still searching for it, because what happened to me, talking about something that Aaron said, the name. I spent a lot of time thinking of the name of my this so-called brand, and I was just dreaming about it. Initially, it was going to be called Resident Evil, and I was like, man, that's a catchy name. It's going to be fantastic. I'll do a lot of stuff. I'll do a lot of terror things, and suddenly, the moment I put that name on Instagram, it was already taken. And I have this anguish about, man, now how I'm going to call the thing I want to do. And all those years I passed thinking about the name just go to the dump instantly. And I have to come up with something that was catchy enough and fun enough to people to turn and see what I'm going to do. And then that's how I came up with the Epoxy Crusader name, because I love Toxic Avengers, I love Toxic Crusader toys. But then again, how do I build this brand around this name? How do I come up with a mascot or a logo or the thing I'm going to sell? As Chrome says, what the hell do I sell? Experience? Is it an experience to buy something from me, to sell something to someone? Or do I sell fun or surprise? Or man, I don't know. I just feel like I sell the things I like to see, but I don't have the means or the catchy name as I don't have to engage people by taking them to this nostalgia lane or to this surprise lane of the things he has. So then again, I feel limited about this. And this flavor, this sweet, fun flavor for me, or maybe for everyone, it's coming a little late, or it's floating there, uh, waiting for you to grasp in. But then again, how you do that? How you do to split yourself between your personality and your brand, which by the way is the same in terms of social media. I don't know.
It requires a lot of thought for sure and planning. Brio Boba, you've hopped in. We haven't heard from you yet. Did you want to hop in on this one at all?
Yeah, hi guys. How's everybody doing tonight?
This is the way.
Yeah, so it's, I guess and it goes back to intent, right? For me, I make, just as a few of you guys say, I make this kind of stuff that I like, and I put pictures up, and you know what, this brings a smile to my face, makes me laugh, and I get a kick out of it, and I put it up, and if people like it, then cool, So as far as like branding or whatever, it was just all happenstance for me. I had this idea of wanting to learn, because I had an ultimate project in mind, and I wanted to learn how to mold and cast, and I started off bootlegging a bootleg, and I just came up with the name just out of nowhere, and so I threw it up on Instagram or whatever, and it's only been a few months now. I'm nowhere near 1,000 followers. I've got, I think, I'm just over 300, which is cool. But I think if you guys have visited my pages or my page, or you own some of my figures, I mean, I think when you hear Barrio Boba, you know what I make. And it's not. It's a mashup of Star Wars and homies, and I don't intend to continue making these indefinitely, and that's why I've posted made posts of some of the custom painting I've done, or some of the other things that I'm kind of into. So to not kind of, give everyone like or pigeonholing myself into just making these little mashups too. So it's one of those things where, you've got, and it does take a lot of time. You spend so much time thinking about, okay, how do I do this? And should I do this? And what do I say, or what do I put up, or whatever? And sometimes it's just, yeah, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to do it. Or sometimes when you're writing it, I'll be in, 20 minutes into setting up a post, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to work. So you hit, and you go all the way back and you scrap it. So it's ultimately, I think, you become your own worst critic, and sometimes it can either hold you back, or sometimes you just say screw it and put it up there. So it's one of those where you're kind of trying to, figure out and balance, what it is you're trying to do, and bounce ideas off my kids. Although kids nowadays don't really play with toys anymore, so I'll bounce ideas off my sister or my wife, and they'll tell me, yes, no, that looks good, that sounds fun, whatever. And so I take that, advice. I know when I first got started, actually, I was chatting a lot with Crumbs, and he was kind of trying to provide suggestions and things like that, and that's all helpful. And I've reached out to some of you guys as well. So it's a learning experience, and regardless of how many followers I have, or if, how many products I sell or don't, I'm going to keep doing it because I think it's fun and it helps me pass the time.
For me, that was my goal in starting out. Was I didn't want to make freelance websites anymore. I wanted to and do all that in my evening time. I wanted to stop and just do something else. And so I started sculpting because I hadn't sculpted before, and I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and that inspired me. It wasn't until maybe a couple of months after I'd started sculpting that I was like, oh, I should get on Instagram and do this. My wife has a photography Instagram account that she posts her own work, and so I saw the kind of community she was a part of, and I was like, let's give this a try. If she had been a part of some other social network, I probably would have gone to that one. I feel lucky that she was on Instagram, because I've gotten to meet all of you. for me, it was okay. I like to do this. I like to talk about what I do. So I'm gonna talk about that in the form of writing and write these posts. And my goal, I think my goal was to continue to document what I was doing. It has turned into that process has turned into education to other people, and um, uh, now I feel like my goals have shifted from, well, I don't want to say my goal has shifted to uh, having fun, to having fun helping other people. And I think in a lot of my work, even in my day job, I see the work I do as a service to someone else. And so for me, the goal would be to serve other people with the work that I do. And if it's to help them think through like a tough sculpting or molding or resin casting thing, I on those latter two, I might refer them to someone else as I'm continuing to learn that myself. But I think even sharing the process of learning is a service to other people. As I when I think of the craftsman, like his process in sharing what he learns is really something I try to emulate in all that I do. I'd say my goal has been the education. Is I've been fortunate that people have liked what I do enough to want to buy the things that I make. And I think even in a way the armature as a product, not a toy, which I think in our community, I'm not sure there are many other products that someone is selling in order for someone else to use to do something else with. Aaron, I would say maybe your pieced together Motu characters are in a way a product of customizing and building your own thing from it. It's kind of like a parts toy, a toy of parts. I would say it's education at this point. And if some products happen to come out of it, great.
What did you feel like chiming in a bit? We were just talking about the goal of the brand.
I think you lost your name. Yucko?
Yucko?
Sorry. You're good. The goal. So it's the goal of the brand. Yeah. Fuck, I don't know. I think the hard part is like, I got in, like, I'm not doing this full time. Like, I don't think any of us here are doing this full time. This isn't what our gig is. Like, I just had an interview with Death by Toys, and he's the first person that I've interviewed that's like, yeah, I do this full time. This is all I got going. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. And it's rad to see, but like, I think my goal of the brand is to make dope shit. And hopefully people love that. With that, it's also like a good customer experience. So I put a bunch of shit in the box, and I put like I'll spend extra money on certain things that go in the box. And so it's just giving an experience, because I know that like, I think it was already said, I think Cody said it, it was this idea of like, we might just be shuffling toys around to different people. And if that's true, then how can my art go to someone and give them a great experience? Like, every once in a while I'll have a message behind it to do something. Like Crumbs has a couple things behind him that like there was an actual message and a purpose behind it, but most of my art isn't that way. And so it's like, yeah, so I made crayons that are in the shape of bullets, and each color is a massacre that happened in the US because we're assholes. And so it's this Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a goal for my brand. I just wanted my brand to be like fluid and like actually just one thing. I think as far as I think going back to thinking back a little bit of like, does it lock me in? I think because I didn't have a purpose for the brand when I first started it, I'm not locked into anything. As long as it looks like a trash toy, it fits into that yucca name. So I think that's where I'm at.
I guess for where I'm hoping to take, my brand, and obviously, if anybody's looked at my Insta, it's very much been about my graphic design with some, life stuff, thrown in there. So I haven't really actually launched a specific brand to making toys yet for myself, but it's something that I've obviously put a lot of thought to. And what do I want to offer people in the way of toys or a product? Is it, and I guess for myself, I haven't quite gotten to the point yet where I'm planning on this is a product that I want to be selling, getting to people with an exact purpose. The only purpose right now in my head is I want to build these toys for me. And it's not so much, oh, I want a toy to play with. It is all these little ideas in the back of my brain that are sitting there, constantly poking me going, hey, you got to do something with this and get it out of your head so you can actually have a good night's sleep for once and forget about it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I have all these little ideas that I'm compulsed to, create and get out into the world just so I can get them out of my head. And right now, whether or not anybody, ends up buying them, I don't know that it matters to me. It'd be great, obviously, that other people love these ideas. But, for me, it's just this compulsion of things that I need to see realized. Do I know what specific direction, the toys that I make will take as far as being able to adhere towards a single vision and a brand? I've thought about that too. I've got, some ideas over here and some ideas over there. And I came to the realization one day that, while I was working on some packaging design and thinking about, well, how would I parody what the big companies do, what the big corporations do? And I realized, wait a minute, if I'm being the little guy, tiny little single artist guy version of, big corporate Hasbro, well, I can put things out under this brand and this brand that are all owned by the giant corporation. So I'm kind of thinking along the lines of, I'm going to be working on an overarching identity and have all these little sub brands for myself that are, very descriptive towards, okay, if I put out, these figures under this little, sub name, you're going to know exactly what kind of toys they're going to be. If I'm going to put out my little bit more based off of my fine art, toys, I'll put it under a different name, under that overarching umbrella, and you'll still have an idea what it's going to be, but it's still all going to be under the, stuff that I make. So that's kind of where I'm starting to take the brand that I'm planning for myself.
That's awesome. Although I have a question, Suchi. Isn't that a lot of work? I've been thinking about that precisely because in the search of this line of work to be for people to just regard on it, I've been thinking of making a lot of little brands, as you say, and put the store things, the meta things, like split them up. But I don't have. I don't feel it. I don't know if everyone feels this way. It seems like there's never enough time to do posts, to do stories, to share stories, to engage with followers, to engage with other artists. And I really get you, because most of the things I do, it's precisely to get them out of my head. It just shut my sleep down all night if I don't do that thing I'm thinking of. So I just wonder how I would be able, or you are able, to do such a thing in a different little brands that accompanies a big brand, when there's no time to do that, and when there's no time to just empty your head from all these ideas. For me, it's like a gigantic and monstrosity of branding problem that sometimes you get involved with in the search of a straight line of work.
For a lot of people,
Sorry. I mean, I think it definitely is a form of insanity on my part, and definitely over planning. But part for me is, because my schooling and what I've done for my, day job, career for these last 25 years is all doing, a lot of logos, a lot of that kind of 2D design work around it. And that is still very much fun for me. I'll still come home, and one of the things that's kept me working, for freelance clients is the fact that I do enjoy, even after a 9-to-5 job, coming home and sitting back down on the computer and taking my time and working on, new logos and brand ideas. So to me, that is very much a part of my vision of what I want to make is that brand development, and plus what I do a lot at the day job. I end up doing a lot of parody, and I enjoy that part too. So part of what I'm aiming for is parody of the large commercially produced stuff, and everything in tow. So, it's definitely going to be a lot to tackle. Will the amount of social media and interaction with customers be affected by that? Most likely, yeah. I'd be crazy to think otherwise. But hopefully, not so much. And hopefully, and it's one of those things, obviously I'm going to figure it out and learn along the way of, what is realistic as far as, how much do I go over here and, dabble with this brand and push that specific little sub brand versus, just tending everything a little more holistically.
Did I hear epoxy? Did I hear you correct? Like, there's not enough time in the day to do all these things. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
there's so many tools.
So many
Oh,
tools. No, but there's no time for doing all these things. For me personally, I have like this box of non-post things,
Mhm.
which I plan to do by all over the week. But then on Thursday, I already post all those things, and I don't have anything to post. And then I start to do or to think about stories, and then on Friday I'm out of stories. Plus, I need to be on this live and engage with this follower, and this guy invited me to do this giveaway and this collaboration and this, and there's no time, enough time to do all the things you purposely thought about your brand.
But that's time management. Like at the end of the day, like I don't mean to be rude. Like I think we all need to utilize tools better, like myself included, for time management. Because the reality is, you look at Rainbow Yawn, watch any of his reels or his TikTok videos that are viral. If you watch his lives, that's where the content is from. He's doing his lives, he's downloading the content, he's saving that demolding video, and he's trimming it into a 30-second video that gets 50,000 views. That wasn't him having to shoot a separate demolding video. He recorded a live and downloaded the content while he demolded. There's tons of programs that you can actually have set up where it'll actually post your content to YouTube, Instagram, and several other platforms with all the tags that you've put in there and everything else. And you can schedule Instagram releases throughout the entire week. You could schedule an entire month worth of Instagram content that you're going to be posting. And that way, the moment you've actually set up 1 week scheduled in advance, oh, that breathing room for a whole week as you get to now do work and set that a week ahead in advance. And before you know it, you're basically at Hemo, because Hemo gets to basically post in October that he's going to release some swap toidles, and we all go nuts over them. And all of a sudden, it's like, boom, there's the packaging. Boom, there's the sealed figure. Boom, there's the whole run. Oh, by the way, I've been building this thing. How? How did you have 3 ideas ahead as you're showing us the toy you're dropping now? At the end of the day, like, I struggle for it, but we all need to invest more in ourselves by learning. Because unfortunately, we get really caught up in this idea of, I can't spend the time looking on YouTube right now to learn this thing. Allow me to trial and error 50 billion times while I try and just jump in and do it on the fly. And the reality is like, you almost need to take some time, slow down for like a week. And if you can, like, take a couple of days to actually just like schedule posts in one of these programs, and just even see how maybe even scheduling 1 post in advance can take off some stress.
Yeah, one of the things that, so at the end of the night when I'm winding down, I'm not watching videos, I'm not reading, I'm studying the algorithm on Instagram. I'm like looking at my own analytics. I'm trying to figure out like what it looks like. Because what's crazy, you'll notice on my feed that I'll go multiple days without posting. And that's not saying I don't have content, but it's because I missed that window. So if I post, it makes no sense. Like, it tells me the day, it tells me the time. Realistically, so one of the algorithm things, realistically, for like steady growth, it's like 2 to 3 times a week posting, super easy, manageable at certain times. Like, if it's not at that time, don't post. What's even crazier is I've like seemed to get exponentially more followers or more engagement through stories, and it's quick, it's easy, it's not anything crazy. But why those stories look crazy from engagement? Like right now, I just looked at it when I was making a drink, and it's like my engagement for my stories is up like 500%, but my engagement for my like normal posts is like up 0.5%. It's like, damn it. But like, those are always so crazy. But people are more likely to engage on a story. They're more likely to engage if it's a poll. Especially, this is weird, like I don't know like all your guys' ages. TikTok has all these songs that go viral constantly, and there's all these songs that are currently trending. Put one of those songs on a picture that's in your story. Like, I could say that if you posted 1 time a week but did a story every day, oh my gosh. And I think as far as like branding, like engagement and quickness, when you engage with people that put that at you in some kind of a post, or they send you a message, that should be branding. That 100%. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to Sucklord or DSB or a couple of the others, and it's like not an immediate, but it's within the hour that they're like, hey, like, yeah, this is what you need, or this is what you do. And it's just, if they can do it and they've got like massive followings, then we can for sure do this. And so I don't know. I think if you build that rhythm, even with working full-time jobs and stuff, like take, hey, on my 15-minute break, or hey, 5 minutes real quick, throw this up. I think you'll see like growth like crazy, because it'll become who you are.
Yeah,
And especially,
I was sorry, Sochi, go ahead.
No, I was just going to reinforce that you're absolutely right, and it is amazing as a consumer that taking that time to watch the DMs or the comments or whatever, and reach back out, even if it's just something real quick and simple, and acknowledging your customers, your fans, that goes so far. I mean, there's been so many times where I've, just like you, reached out to somebody, DM them something, a real big, artist out there, and within an hour or two, they responded. And I'm like, wow, I'm a nobody. And yet they took the time to, reach back out and say, hey, thanks. And, here's your answer to your question or whatever. And that just goes so far for the customer service and that customer engagement. I mean, that's, it's pure gold.
Yeah, as you say, well, I was hoping someone mentioned it the way Abraham did, because that's something I've been wondering through all the week. It's not like I'm pessimist about it. It's just like I just noticed that most of the things in terms of branding, it's a lot of see and do, because you understand the schedule and the time and the analytics of Instagram when you see it through other persons, through other profiles. You need to get used to the hours you post and stuff, because the social media itself turns you to that way, to emulate the behavior of other profiles. I don't know if in some sort of unity or net of unicity, but in the end, whatever you think about branding becomes this see and do from other profiles, which by the way helps you, as you say. Once I notice that if I do this with these songs, and if I reach out this guy, and etc., then you start to see the growth of it. You grow up in followers, you grow up in engagement. uh, Most of the thing I was talking about, the time or the lack of time, goes to this point, to the lack of time between learning the way of the social media and learning how to get used to this language of the social media. Besides all the other semiotics of the things you do, your day job, your hobby, your your expectations about the product, your expectations about the followers, and the expectation that all this amount of people has over you. You know, it's a process of learning the tools, but how many time there is to all the tools, how many time is to there is to reach everybody. I don't know, that's my whole anguish about this so-called branding idea, no? Because in the end, as everybody has already said, we mostly do this out of fun because we like to do so, not not as thinking it as a product or something I sell, like an experience or something that somebody is going to use. Because in the end, in terms of theoretically speaking, what I sell is just display satisfaction, not a toy, not a product, just the display satisfaction of achieving something that is going to be fun or likely to someone or somebody. Did I explain myself right with this? I was just like rambling.
And I guess that is kind of the ultimate question for everybody is, how much is, the branding as an artist, as a toy maker, how important is to you? Because obviously, if you're doing it primarily for your own fun and enjoyment, reinforcing that brand, and reaching out to, your customers through all the avenues might not be as important. But obviously, if you're sitting there going, hey, I want to do this as a day job, I have to also be paying the rent, with it. I also got to be saving up for the kids' college education. I got to get the car repaired. I need to be making some money. So obviously then, yeah, you do need to shift those priorities, and that, social media and your reach and your followership has to grow. And that's the way it is. But that's how, you have artists like Beeple, who apparently lives down the road from me. He was pushing out, an image a day for a year, grew a giant following. And that's part of how he was, fortunate enough to, turn around and start selling, digital, artwork for, he's now one of the top, three, I think, richest living artists in the world. So, part of that success is reaching out and growing, getting that exposure and, creating that following for yourself and your brand. But how important is that to you as an artist?
I think for me, this is, from a user experience perspective, product design perspective, there's there's the gamification aspect of the social network experience, and everything that the product designers behind Instagram, behind TikTok, and everything have introduced these features not only to help creators but help audiences. But when we talk about timing, to time the post for the right engagement, there's I guess I don't know any quantifiable insight to say, 100 likes is equivalent to, or I haven't, I guess from what I have sold, I haven't really done the analysis. Like, did I sell this much because I had this many followers, or because I had this many likes on a particular post? Is the attempt to post something at the opportune time for some result other than getting more likes? Are we tracking shares? Are we then understanding how things are, how that is being monetized, or rather, what is the financial outcome from that? If it's in the lead up to a claim sale, are you timing things to get people aware? I don't know if the analytics can say how many times the same person has liked who are your top favorite, or the top X people who have liked your posts. Do those people buy something? That's good. I typically post my stuff late night Pacific time, because that's when I'm done sculpting and I'm about to go to bed. Like, let's just post it. It's probably the wrong thing to do, because then I wake up to a bunch of responses. But I kind of do it when it's convenient for me, because if I try to play that game of doing it when it's opportune, I'm going to get distracted, and that'll just happen during my regular day job. And so, I've started to put my phone behind me, not at my desk during the day, because I can't engage, and I save it for the evening. But so for me, it's a matter of convenience. But I think what this is all kind of pointing to is, like, if I wanted to get more, if I wanted to do more out of it, or I eventually saw that a certain level of engagement resulted in a certain financial outcome, would I attempt to do that more often? And then it leads to the question of, well, if I want to keep doing this, if I do want to turn it into a job, and more than just to something, not a job, but to something that can support me financially, what is that line, and when do I make the switch? What does going at it full time look like, and how's that different from doing it part time? We can do a lot of things to optimize the time we do have through technology and strategy, but I think those have their limits, unless your reach expands, and which is another topic I'd like to talk about at some point, is how do you expand the reach beyond the toy community, beyond the enthusiasts, and attract people who buy art but don't yet buy toy art. That's kind of, yeah, that's a thought for a later during this discussion, probably.
There's an interesting dynamic, because I know that, like, there's no guarantee, right? So you post at the opportune time. It just means that more people will see it, and just hopes that will generate income as well, right?
Yeah.
But then after, like, as far as reach goes, after a certain level, you stop having to do certain things, right? So obvious Plant, he's at 560,000 followers. So he doesn't use hashtags anymore. and he probably doesn't give a shit about what time of day he posts. Like, it probably doesn't matter to him, because in 560,000 followers, at some point he's still going to have at least, at minimum, 5,000 people are going to see his stuff. For us that are still in this process of growing, it's like we're all trying to hit that it's like that popular meme thing, right? So for the reels, it takes one person to like it for 2 other people to see it on their thing, and then it keeps, like, it'll multiply from there or do whatever it does. And I think the same thing for posts. Like, if you post at the opportune time, you're getting that many more people to see it, who hopefully then, like, either put it in their story or do whatever. And so then, like, yeah, there's that weird line that hopefully it leads to sales. And then once you start to make it and get such a big reach, like, that stuff starts to fade away very quickly.
Well, it leads to like a larger question though, which is like, who is my audience, right? And this is like goes back to thinking about what your products are, because ultimately, I mean, yes, we're all in it for like the joy of making stuff, creating art, and sharing it with people. But because we're selling it, there's also the inclination that we're trying to, in an ideal situation, you know, make a living off of it, where like you can quit your day job and you can do whatever and just make stuff all day. And but part of that's like deciding what you want to be, right? So like these guys with 500,000 followers or whatever, like they're without inside information, it's really hard to gauge what they're actually doing for money, right? We're just speculating on what they do. Like, is Rainbow Jan selling enough figures to finance his entire life? Who knows? Like, I haven't talked to him, so I don't know.
Not yet.
And like Killer Bootlegs, someone told me that he makes, supposedly makes like 50 grand a year. But there's like a point though, because we're hand making everything, right? And we talked about Pendragon and you like use as a factory. There's a point where like if you have 500,000 followers, like you can't make enough art to fill all those sales. You can't. Or you're selling things for like astronomical prices because you have to like, you don't have, there's just not enough time to make $10,000, $20 figures without using a factory. And so like, instead of worrying about, like, this is just my opinion, because like I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, right? And so like social media is a vehicle to get viewers to see your things, to grow the reach. So it's advertising. We're all marketing, because otherwise why are we here? So like it's a matter of like trying to figure out where do you want to put your priorities. And ours are all different. We all have our own priorities. So I'm like trying to hit a certain level of quality for myself. So like posts to me are a way to kind of just share like my journey. And because I'm not actively selling anything, I haven't sold anything in over a year. So like, it's not like I'm trying to hustle to make the next sale, so I don't know what that really means, but like, I don't know if trying to gamify the social media thing is like, that becomes a job. You're like watching the metrics and like, fuck that. I don't have time for that. Like, I have other things I want to do that, like, I'm trying to make stuff, and yes, I have to use social media to get it out there, to get people to see it and share it and all that. But like, if I'm spending half my day like scheduling posts and pre-generating content for a week in advance, like, what am I doing? Like, I already am trying to juggle all my real life stuff. I have to eat, I have to clean myself, I have to like do laundry, clean the house, take care of my cats, like spend time with my partner. Like, I don't have unlimited time to like spend half my available time on social media. If I do that, I'll just never get anything done, and then what's the point?
Yeah.
And rant, I guess.
There's something that I think is getting missed here though, and it's basically like, so really quickly, when we're talking about like the branding and the purpose, I don't know if anybody realizes like as a brand in the toy community, I have zero monetization goals. I have no product I'm selling to anybody in the toy community. I've got no service that I'm technically selling to anybody. I don't do any send me your product and I'll do an unboxing. I buy all the products I do. So at the end of the day, every single video content I do, or any kind of unboxing or any interview, or even these, they're all on top of everything else everybody else has to do in their life, the 9 to 5, the fam jam, the house, all that stuff. So for me, because I'm not selling a product, monetization isn't what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the right engagement metrics. So for me, that means not how many likes on a post, how many people actually came to my website, how many people actually went and wanted to know more. So if I got 30 likes on a post, I need to be like, I only got 30 on that video and somebody else got 70 on a post. And then the more people you meet, though, the more you just start name dropping artists and their material, and everybody's staring at you with a blank face. Because it's pretty fucking easy to scroll through Instagram and just double click all your friggin' day away. But you need meaningful engagement. You need people to actually retain what it is they saw and know who that artist is. And that's actually really rare in this scene, sadly. So when I look at the metrics that are important to me, I'm actually looking at, okay, cool, only 30 people liked it. Oh, dope. 29 of them actually proceeded to click over to my profile. Oh, dope. 17 of them clicked on the link in my profile. So now I can actually look over on YouTube and see, well, I've got, 53 views. I can tell that one post I did that one day, hopefully brought people either to my Instagram page where they saw a bunch of other names of artists in the scene and went, whoa, who are these guys? What are these toys? And basically did what I wanted. I wanted to basically spread the word of the homies in the scene, what they're doing. And if they went one step further and actually ended up going to my YouTube to actually further engage with the content, then I know that they actually ended up absorbing something from it. They didn't just see a random color blast on their Instagram. They actually hit me up sometimes and are like, dude, that video you did with so-and-so, so cool. And then all of a sudden you get this weird, natural, organic flow. There's times I don't even get a video out yet, but because you can't stop talking about how dope that person was that you just sat with, something you just see is all your friends start following this person and sharing that stuff. So when I look at my personal insights for the last 30 days, the most important one for me is accounts reached, plus 126.6%. Now that's accounts that weren't following me before. So that means that that's 126.6% greater than before that are now seeing my content and hopefully following you guys. And then I get content interactions, plus 95.3%. Well, what are those interactions? If I actually look at how many of those interactions were comments and not just likes or saves, that's a really big deal to me, because at the end of the day, that helps with my algorithm. And the whole reason why I'm doing any of the stuff I'm doing is because I'm hoping homies end up seeing the cool stuff that actually drives me every day, which is what you guys are putting out. And so when I end up seeing a total followers of 7.7%, my follower count doesn't directly influence what I'm selling. What my follower count ends up meaning is that every time I post a video about another artist, that's hopefully more people that are now actually seeing that post and are curious about that artist's work. That's the whole grand scheme of it. So at the end of the day, those metrics are important to my brand, but that's not going to be important to everybody's brand. And we've even talked about how do you branch out from Instagram? Instagram is let's face it, one, it's turning into Facebook real quick. It's getting scary how desolate that landscape is starting to get at the moment. And the issue is I feel that there's a huge quantization of people that have switched over to Discord. There's a massive amount of people that are trying to figure out TikTok. The issue is, and I saw at the moment that Instagram even dropped that whole, hey, do you want to create a store button on this thing? I was like, oh no, they're making it easier for people who don't know how to sell on Instagram. What is one of the worst things you can do to the cool kids, right? You give the dad the thing the cool kids have. And the moment that people are using a platform and a tool and they feel like they're actually being able to use it and navigate it properly, and they start seeing the weird cringe content come of trying to utilize it properly, they can smell it. It's not authentic. It smells weird. And they end up almost cringing away from it. So at this point, there are so many platforms outside of Instagram. We've chosen this one because it seems this is where everyone is. But if this isn't where everyone is anymore, if you go on Facebook, there are so many collector groups. And these guys love talking toys. But a lot of us don't touch Facebook anymore. And if you actually look on eBay, It is crazy the amount of dudes you can meet on there that are on forums, message boards. They're also collectors. They're on Reddit everywhere. And if you can find one of those guys who's actually buying a bunch of Polish bootlegs, I promise you're going to find his Reddit forum like in like 2 seconds, where a bunch of these guys are talking about it. And Reddit's actually a great place that you can actually be pushing sales and your content, because especially Kerfloss, like you mentioned, you're almost selling an experience of education. When people go on Reddit, like they're basically there to absorb. And so like you could literally be hosting full-on chats where people know like Kerfloss is going to be on live on Reddit and he's going to be answering questions for us. Like it really all depends on what your audience is. You need to almost find out like, well, where is the audience I want and where are they hanging out? Because even Discord is great, but if Discord basically becomes like a little PM hangout of artists talking to artists, trading with artists, doesn't build a consumer base. Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
cool.
no, I've been thinking about how to expand the reach of my content, and one it may entail first getting my content into a searchable space, just to port it over to a Squarespace website, just so it shows up in people's searches, so that I have, if I were to expand out, I kind of have a repository to say, hey, Facebook, it link to the website, to Reddit. Thanks for the tip. Send it to the website, because right now we're in a closed walled garden of Instagram, and people can't search for our stuff. Which from a learning perspective and wanting to educate people and just the way I found out about a lot of the things I know was through Google searches. I realize now no one can find my stuff, and it's only the people who are in Instagram that can benefit from it. So I feel like that's gonna be a next step for me is getting that out there, because I want Kenner Wax sculpting action figure to show up, because there's only archive photos. There's no one else who's carving in Kenner Wax, and I wish that was there when I had started looking. Yeah, I think the next step for marketing this and getting it out there is getting it somewhere searchable, at least, so you can have something to reference.
I actually think it's really interesting that like Instagram is just where this community existed. Like, I mean, I tried, like I use Reddit daily generally, and I could not find like any decent sized or active communities that do anything related to this. Like our resin casting is like the closest, and it's like basically it's the silicone molds. Yeah, big thumbs down. It's silicone molds off of Amazon and people pouring art resin into it and like putting a flower in it, and it's like nothing. There's no point. It's useless for us, right? And like Instagram became like, I have a personal Instagram that's separate, and I use it to interact with friends' photos, but I am a classic lurker of all like social media platforms, right? I don't engage, I don't post generally, right? Like I just don't actually, it's just not my bag. I have like 30 pictures total on like a 10-year-old Instagram account, like that, but I keep up with my friends. It's what I use to talk to people, right? I just don't post shit, right? So I think honestly, it's one of those things where Instagram just happens to be where the community is, and that's what like I use. Man, I would love if there was anything else that was like better. I kind of detest Instagram like this. So just speaking of like engagement stuff, right? So, I mean, I just first off, a small gripe. I hate that it's only like usable on your phone to do like anything interesting. That's the worst. Like I sit on my computer, and you can only drop likes on the computer. But aside from that, engagement wise, like I tried just normal posts, right? For me, like average, like 35 to 50, somewhere in there, like likes, general engagement stuff, right? I did a little experiment when I just promoted a couple posts, because like you can promote, promotions are actually super cheap. You can pay like $2 a day, and it guarantees like 10,000 like interactions, right? Like 10,000 things. And it's super funny, because it's like, you pay the $2 a day for like a week or whatever, right? It's like $10 total. And it hit like 90% of them were people that already followed me. It just made it show up in like the rest of my people who followed me's feed. And it's like, you know, it's like pretty obvious that like, and this is how like Facebook works as well as like the non-chronological timeline, like the actual algorithmic newsfeed that it gives you is like it coalesces around like a certain group of like high engagement people for you, and isn't actually sending it to all your followers like actively, right? And so things like even your stories, they get like thrown to like the back of it, right? Like you don't, not a whole lot of people see it, but like you know, it's actually really weird because you can get to the end of your algorithmic things and it starts going into suggested posts or whatever, right? And if you say like view older posts, it won't just show you older posts, it will show you posts that you like literally didn't see from people that you already follow. And like it's super weird. And so like when you like promote something, it actually just makes it show up in their in other people's feeds prior to that, like that fold that nobody interacts with, because all of a sudden you're just in suggested posts, which is other things. So like it's one of those things, like in terms of like marketing, I feel like Instagram's a great like marketing network, right? And to me it's actually one of the worst social networks, period, because like there's no like communal ability to like discuss anything. There's no permanence with anything that's like being like that's happening in there. It's not searchable. It's like completely locked down to like hashtags, and like how do you know, like so my account's only like through like the entire like Downer Energy brand is like a month and a half old, right? Like this, it's like nothing, right? And like the only reason it exists and has anything in here is because like I found like one hashtag that was like, oh, all these people are on it, because I was just in like suggested one, like after like in suggested posts, and it's like you liked like 7 of this same one, and I was like, oh, that must be where like I'm at. And like that discoverability is horrible, right? So it's just weird. It's a very weird platform. I think it's bad for marketing. If anyone figures out something else, like throw it out there, because this sucks.
Yeah, for me to continue the rant, you know, just like Crum said, yeah, it's becoming more and more, and I think it's already surpassed being turned into Facebook. It's worse than the fact that it essentially is pay to play now. You know, if you want your posts to be seen, you have to boost them. And there was an article that came out in the last week that basically, you know, somebody looking at all the statistics pulled and data that from, you know, the app store and everything of what data they collect and everything. Somebody added it all up, and Instagram now is by far the worst as far as taking your data. 80% of your data they grab, you know, run off and do something with, and you're kind of like left sitting now going, well, nobody saw my post. They took all my data and made money off of that. Where did I actually benefit for all the effort I just put in? So, you know, you do ask yourself, okay, well, what else is the next big thing out there, you know, that we can all go to before Facebook or Microsoft or somebody buys it up and destroys that platform? So,
well, that goes back to like when before I went on a tangent and started ranting. What my point was supposed to be, thinking about like who you want your customer to be, right? Crumbs mentioned, and I've mentioned this in past just these chats, like straight up toy collectors, right? Action figure collectors. They're buying Marvel Legends, they're buying DC Extended Universe, you know, Star Wars Black. Those dudes, those groups are I'm in like 6 groups on Facebook, and I'm in, you know, some of the Reddits and stuff. And so like, even though I'm in this like designer toy community on Instagram, I feel like I'm in my mind when I started doing this like a ways back, it was always like I was thinking of action figure collectors, right? Because that's what I was like wanting to make. But it happens to overlap with like the designer toy community, I guess, because I'm making them by hand. I don't know. But like, so that's like my ideal target market is people who are buying those, you know, they're buying the Marvel figures, they have dioramas, like they're really into it. And it's the same with any fandom. Ninja Turtles, Master Universe, Star Wars, like there's dedicated fan bases. And it's like I don't know. I don't know enough about the greater designer toy community, like that started with like vinyl toys and now is resin toys. as far as like what that looks like, because like we've all talked about, it's very fragmented as far as you know, it exists kind of on Instagram. There are like the big stars, and there's like all the rest of us. And but then trying to find those communities elsewhere is fucking impossible. Like I've also scoured every platform and they don't exist. So like for some reason Instagram is this like dot in the sea of black where like, you know, we're all coalescing. But but it's important to think about like your customer, who your ideal customer is, and try to find them instead of like hoping they find you on Instagram, right? Because like Suki said, what happens when Instagram just goes belly up? Because it's gonna happen. Like you better have a backup plan. And like Kerfloss said about, you know, I have a store, I have a YouTube and all this other shit. Like you got to be in all the places. It's a lot of work, but like it helps people find you on whatever platform their preference is, because some people like Tumblr, some people like Reddit. You know, you got to like be in the places people are so they can find your artwork and it gets shared and all that. So that's just my greater point, is like thinking about, well, who is my ideal customer, and try to, I don't know, move in a direction where you're going toward them so that they see your stuff. Because like, you know, we don't really know what to do with Instagram, and so I feel like playing the social media game of like trying to game the posts is just like pointless, because like it's just like it's a short time thing. Like there's benefit clearly, right? But if, to me, Instagram feels like a putting all your eggs in one basket kind of thing, and I don't know. I'd rather like target my ideal customer and try to like figure out how to get to them. That's my whole point.
One thing I've been working at over time with like all the YouTube videos, I don't know how much anybody actually looks in them in the descriptions. Basically, I noticed really early on in the toy community that searching and optimization was really poor. It was just lacking. As Kerfloss mentioned, how do you get your name to appear when you're looking at these key searches? The reality is on every single one of those descriptions, I try and catch any artist that we're talking about in that conversation. And I'll actually make sure to actually put at the bottom for more any information. I'll put like the hashtag for their names, and I'll put their IG store, and I'll put their shop if they've got one. And I try and actually go back on these creative discussions as well and make sure that I do the same on that. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is feed more and more information of that into the Google system. Because at the end of the day, the more that you can have those names associated with bootleg or kit bashes or designer toy, custom toy, Sucklord, any of those things, the more that all of a sudden that comes up in search engine optimization. And of course, like you were saying, how do you get your fans to Instagram? Well, it's wild to me. Sometimes people don't realize how much a quick little share can do. And I see it directly influenced in the posts. I can see the difference between when I do an unboxing with an artist and they don't share it in their story versus when an artist does share it in their story. Hello Radical Toys was basically up in the YouTube for like 24 hours, 83 views versus, you know, other artists might sit there for 3 or 4 days. They didn't also try and push it. It said something crazy to me that Hello Radical had a really good fan base, that there were people that I don't have on Instagram that were commenting on the YouTube, that I was then coming to him being like, dude, who are these people? That's awesome. Like, why were YouTube fans of Hello Radical Toys there? And in my, that's really important. The more places that you can, Bootleg Sewer Mutant said that 3 years ago when he first typed in bootleg toys, the first site he saw was Titty Bean Toys. How does that just happen? You know? And at the end of the day, Titty Bean's like, yeah, I just kind of put a bunch of hashtags in my Etsy store. Beautiful. That's a great way. It's like you think of a store and you think, oh, well, I'm not really ready to sell yet. Well, no, but there's evidence right there. This guy put a couple hashtags in his Etsy post. You type in bootleg, and one of the first people you get is him. There's tons of people when I first got into it that I'd be typing in on Google, resin toys, resin figures, resin action figures, bootleg toys, designer toys. And like you guys were saying, you're stuck kind of digging and scrapping and kind of like end up on Instagram, suggested. And you follow the little rabbit hole until eventually you know some toy people. Neat. But even Discord, I've gone on there. I've tried finding been very just like people talking toys, and this is where we work on toys, and it's not the same as when you look up video games. So where's everybody moving? I'd even actually say it's hilarious. Again, look at Rainbow Yon's post in the last little bit. He hasn't changed anything about what he's up to, but you'll see as all of a sudden his reels are like 500,000, 200,000, 50,000. And it's kind of like, okay, well, why are those trickling? This person has made content that's solid. He clearly trends very well. Where do you need to post it? Like, is it just Google at this point? Do you find something that'll just scatter it on everything?
You know what's actually funny is like someone like Rainbow Yon or Obvious Plant, they have a Reddit presence through like other things. Like, I mean, like there's like our Obvious Plant, like the subreddit Obvious Plant, and it's not specific to their work, but their work is like emblematic of that subreddit. And so it's very interesting how like those, like, I mean, Reddit in essence is a link aggregation site, right? Like it's not specific to anything raised. So it's interesting how like other people's work drips from their Instagram into like Reddit, somewhere where something is like seen and discussed publicly. And I think it just speaks very poorly to like how Instagram is like, it's so insular in like how it operates and like how the communities operate. Where like, and even Discord's the same. Like Discord doesn't give you any information about a community. It doesn't produce a searchable, and it doesn't produce any content related to that community outwardly. And it's something that I think Reddit is actually fairly unique in the fact that it does that, which to me says like, that's where I want to be. Cause like, again, like none of this is searchable. None of this content is. I literally learned about like hard wax, like Asbro wax or the Kenner wax from a kerf loss video, and like that, like watching him do it live, and I was like, oh, like there's such a thing as like hard wax that you can just carve with. That's crazy. And like even now trying to find anything, like can't even find like a hot wax pen. Like I found like things that reference their existence, and like one shop that sold it and it's been out of stock for like 10 years. Like there's just no evidence they've ever sold these things. And it's like there's just no information out there. Go ahead, Aaron.
Dental wax is what you want.
Probably. I have like a 5-pound block of Asbro wax right now because there's the only like thing that I could get readily. Yeah, it seemed good enough.
Yeah, there's hard dental waxes. You can buy them from suppliers. You can buy them on eBay, and there's like different densities, but they're all like a hard. I don't know how hard the wax you're using is, Jonathan, but the stuff that I have is like you can like carve it with like your nail or a tool, but it's not like soft, right? You have to like melt it, and then you can like carve it with a knife and stuff because it's for sculpting crowns and shit like that, and then they have to mold it and then slip cast it and shit. So like they're all doing it already. So like you can find all this stuff because my buddy's a dentist and he gave me a bunch of his stuff from school. And he's like, here, maybe you can use this. And I started
absolutely, I could use this.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another avenue you can look for is like dental supplies. Actually, I have this stuff that came with it. It's Euro Dye Sealer Hardener Clear. It's like a brush-on clear coat. It's like a clear coat paint, but it's very thin, so it fills in all the cracks, and it gets super hard really fast. Crazy. So it's a sealer for like the wax sculpts before they mold them to like smooth over all the sides and stuff. Yeah, you can find it on eBay.
It's so funny because like this is like the exact problem, right? It's like we get this information through like word of mouth, which to me honestly, so there's twofold. One thing is like to me not a problem, which is that we have an artist community that like readily shares like information and technique like this, which is like awesome. That's like the good stuff. That's what you want out of like any artist community, right? And then there's like the other side of it, which is like we have to share this stuff by word of mouth and like live videos exclusively because there's like no indexed portion of this knowledge base that exists anywhere because it doesn't seem to get traction anywhere, right? Like there's nothing. I like trying to figure out how to like I mean I like literally first like Kenner style, like just like 3.75 that I was like trying to do, and I got the figure and I was like, how do I even take this apart? I see people take these apart all the time, and I was like, how do I just like not explode this thing while trying to take it apart? And I found like one post that is like a 90s style website that was like, oh, you just boil it for like 2 seconds and it just comes
You
apart.
could use the bench vise too.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, like I found a couple, but they were all just like ancient websites, and they were like the second page of Google, and it was like all I was looking for was like disassemble Kenner, or things like that, and it's like that should be like obvious. This should be anything. YouTube videos showing me how to like remove the sonic welding and stuff, and I was like, that seems probably not like what I'm looking for. Like this is intense. It's just weird. It's weird to me that there's like it's weird that the community exists. And it's weird that the community exists without that knowledge base preceding it, which I feel like is usually how like these communities like propagate. But here we are.
Yeah, I have the same experience. In fact, I just DM'd Aaron the other night going, yeah, how did you crack those torsos open? So the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it is a shame that it's not something you can just, Google and have that, the answer to that specific question you're looking for, or even, most of the time on YouTube, you're just like, wow, I have a very specific need. There's got to be somebody that's done it. Hopefully they've also done a how-to video. But, when you get into, these small areas that haven't gained that kind of attraction, yeah, it's a big problem.
I mean, it might be worth bringing back forums, honestly, because
right.
I found the technique to crack the Hello torsos via Google, pointing me to a GI Joe customization forum. This is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So like I pick that up, and that's how I do it. I don't boil them. I just crack them in a bench vise. And then if you like go back through some of my old posts, because I used to explain a lot of the stuff. I still do. I just haven't been posting a lot. But I do reconstruction too. Because like you're gonna break some of it. So if you want like an exact copy, you're going to have to rebuild parts of it. So I use like polystyrene plastic, and you can get that at any hobby store. And but yeah, like you said, we need some way to collect this stuff. And forums are searchable. Sure, they're like old and lame, but I mean, like I posted about email, fucking works. Like
blogs. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I saw recently, because you guys are all touching something. Like when I first came into this, I knew nothing. You have to understand, like, I only know what I know by putting in like 20 to 25 hours into every single one of those videos, sitting down with artists, picking their brain, and on top of that, trying to dig through history of toys. And yeah, it'd be great if you could take basically one of those hour-long videos, because I'm somebody who I hate clicking through a fucking YouTube video trying to find the information I want. But at the end of the day, if you go to a page and you type in Control F, because Google brought you there, and then you type in that keyword that you were looking for, and you find that stuff, and suddenly all the pictures start showing up. Downer Energy, it was amazing to me, because when I was sitting and talking to One Trick Pony months ago, and he mentioned what he does with the magnets, and you start telling people that, and people are kind of like, I don't get it. And then you sit down and you do a breakdown of them, and you explain like how he puts it into the negative, and that way, like when you cast them out, like he gets the 3 magnets in that hole and he doesn't have to drill it. And you get people being like, I want to figure that out, but I can't quite get it. And meanwhile, you've been kind of told like, hey, if you don't mind, like, I don't really feel like trying to explain it, but for you, it just clicked. And so all of a sudden, when you see somebody else who all of a sudden just like posts a picture and it just clicked, and you're just like, yeah, post those pictures. Thank you for doing that. Because you're sitting there being like, I'm not the right person to really know how to tell people like, hey, this is how you do it. But then when you see another maker sit down and actually do that, suddenly you're just kind of like, that's the post we need. Thank you. Because at the end of the day, that's the kind of stuff that, yes, there needs to be blogs, forums that you can type it into Google, and it's got to be popping up there, because there's too much. There's too much to know. I've definitely been told before, like, I was having a conversation with someone and they just ended it where it was like, a clamshell is a case. That's actually a hollow body. Well, you know what? It is very difficult to find something that explains to you that you don't call it a clamshell. So this stuff needs to be readily available for us. If it's also going to be part of like Kerf Loss pointed out, I've been calling them vents. And he pointed out that there's a whole other name. I'm not going to remember it now.
Sprue.
Yeah. Sprues. Yeah. What's funny, every time I type in sprue on my iPhone, it's like it tries to autocorrect that. I'm like, no, bro, that's a real word.
So that's just it, though. Like if you're watching a video and somebody's talking about a sprue, and then all of a sudden you're talking, being like, oh, well, they're always mentioning vents.
There's also gates.
Difference. And the gate. And that's just it. Like the I noticed in construction a long time ago, you're trying to talk to somebody who might be from Ireland, and they mention a totally different name for a tool or a supply. And same with Americans and Canadians, you're looking at a supply, and we either don't have it or you guys have a different name. Varnish is like the biggest one that you guys always talk about, where you put a varnish on a piece. But I don't know where we're supposed to put all this stuff. And the issue is how do you make it like a group database, like a group blog, where essentially like anybody can contribute, but you also don't really want it to be a whole article on crack smoke one day. So,
man, honestly, like Reddit operates as this, like a distributed, like Reddit is like a forum aggregate, right? And like it operates really well in that regard, not just like popular posts, but like they show up in Google results like readily, like for a lot of things, right? And it's just interesting that there's no community that I found that has like even approaching a critical mass of like activity to like matter on Reddit at all, given how large even figures like Obvious Plant and Rainbow Yawn are, right? Like these should be like central hubs, but it seems to only exist on Instagram, right? I don't know.
For niche content, I'll actually now start typing Reddit into Google. Like if it's something pretty neat that I know isn't openly discussed or is going to be readily available, instead of just doing an open Google search, I'll actually type in like, what's going on in this season, this episode, Reddit on Google, because I know that I'm actually more likely to find people of my like-mindedness talking about it than I am an actual resource that breaks it down in any kind of sensical form for me.
My only issue with Reddit is their search is terrible.
Search is horrible. Native Reddit search is horrible. Like it's useless.
There's so many Reddits you can't find unless you know about it already. Like, and there are sites that like Reddit lists that aggregate, sites by Reddits by activity, but hundreds of them just don't even show up. You can't Google them. You search Reddit, they don't show up. Like it's very weird. So that's my one gripe with Reddit.
It's the equivalent of the hashtag problem on like Instagram, right? Where it's like unless you know what hashtag you're approaching and what you're looking to do, it's like you might as well not exist or not have any idea what that community is. Like I've never heard the term prior to like looking at other people's posts on here. Was sofubi, like soft vinyl. Never heard that before. And then it's like everything has that tag on it, like in the designer toy thing, whether it's soft vinyl or not. And I'm like, I've never even, I mean, like I've had designer desk toys for like the better part of like 15 years. And it's like, I've never heard that word in my life. So how is I supposed to know? Like, how does anyone know? It's so weird. It's so weird.
I would even blame Funko for that. Sorry. Because Funko, of course, built their brand huge off of the little soft vinyl toys, but that's actually Chinese soft vinyl. And then they actually did a limited run where they did the Sofubi. There were, of course, big ones that had a limited run where it'd be like X amount of this amount. And that was the first time I think Westerners were kind of like hit heavy with a commercialized soft vinyl product that suddenly introduced us to the idea of like there being chase figures, there being numbered limited editions, there being store exclusives. And I think that was really responsible. There was always people that were collecting it, but it always seemed that when you were talking soft vinyl, like what's weird about it is people like myself, you'll talk to a Sofubi pro homie and you'll kind of say like, oh, well, I've got some Anonymous Rat. I don't really know if that counts as Sofubi. And they'll be like, well, isn't it Japanese soft vinyl? And you're like, yes. They're like, well, it's Sofubi. And your brain kind of gaps for a minute because you're always thinking of like designer, GameStop toys or Funko Pop. And you kind of forget that like these companies are actually soft vinyl. And on top of that, like you even broke it down, like you're always indie. Like I never really thought about that to any degree, but the one guy's like, no, you can be small or big, but like you're always indie because you paid somebody to make that sculpt and design that toy. And all of a sudden you're sitting there being like, we separate soft vinyl so much even from the resin class. And we almost think of it as being like this like whole separate entity. And it's like, they're indie. They've just thrown a different portion of money at a different time into their craft. It's not paced out like this. They went, I'm going to throw it all in because I believe in this thing and I'm going to get my product back. But now I get to do a separate release of different colors versus resin. Like every time you're like, I'd love to do a new drop. Am I going to make a new mold? Am I buying new resin? And every time it's that fresh expense. It's going to cost the same long run. Tangent. Just because we're near the end, sorry. A platform that has worked for them. I'd like to, we've talked about all the ones that aren't working. what are some positive experiences you've had with platforms? And actually, Yucko, I know you've had some with Reddit. Do you feel like sharing?
Yeah, Reddit, that was one of my first things I ever posted. I posted a Mario, the original Mario on NES. I posted that. I made a figure that had that, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was just a fireball in it. Like I designed a little fireball, and it went nuts. And I just like I don't know what happened, but within a couple minutes, it was like 900 upvotes or whatever, and I was like, damn, is this what it's like to be famous? But it was a weird moment because then I couldn't hit that. And I learned with Reddit, like you have to post it in the things that, like there, I follow one of the Reddit's shitty action figures, but which is cool, but I'm not going to always post in there because it's only those people that would see it. Like I want to post something that is going to see what I do. So I made that Wish version of Thor. I didn't post that on Reddit, but if I was going to, it would be in something that had to do with Wish or the shittiness of Wish or ordering online. I think Reddit, so it goes back to that stupid thing, like the search is so awful, but you're just searching all these different things that have to do with anything remotely close to your thing that isn't bootleg action figures. Like, I think that's how I do Reddit, because I don't want, my goal isn't the bootleg community, because that's what I use Instagram for. Reddit has so many users that I'm just trying to funnel my shit other places that hopefully, this is like, because Reddit's interesting. It's like that fucking hive mind shit going on. I was sending a friend of mine TikToks that I was seeing, and he was like, yeah, I saw those on Reddit. And I was like, bro, that got posted 10 minutes ago, and you just saw it on Reddit. And so they're doing like, there's something so interesting when 60 million people are on like Reddit, like pushing shit through. And so, yeah, I love Reddit, but I love it for different reasons than I love Instagram. Like I'm always trying to push my stuff through even the weirdest of things. And then when people comment on it, they usually do like, oh man, maybe you should post this in the obvious plant one, or maybe you should post this in the shitty action figures. It's like, no, I posted it here for a reason, you idiot. But yeah, I love Reddit. Although I have said I have gotten in trouble on Reddit. I will say, like, if you, what's interesting about Reddit is like Star Wars stuff, the people that are producers and the people that work on the set and all that, like they're in there. Like it's, you don't know who's who. And so like I've gotten messages that were like, hey, take that post down. Like we're gonna, like they just say some dumb shit like, oh, we're gonna find you, or I don't, all that stupid idiotic stuff. But man, it's like I posted a couple Star Wars things and I got messages within minutes of like, this shouldn't be up. Like, do you have the licensing for it? And it's like, no, I don't.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's why I do what I do. I do not have that licensing. I will never have that licensing. Like, also, that is a dumbass question. Look at, like, I'm on Reddit.
Yeah. Go ahead and send me a cease and desist. I promise after these 50 sell, I'll never make it again.
Yeah. And so it's like, there are, like, I made a Disney one. Disney sent me something one time because I made these like Disney Presents figures, and I accidentally used Disney in their logo and everything. And it was like Disney pollution, Disney poaching, nice. all kinds of shit. And one of their people reached out through Reddit and was like, hey, you better take those down. And I was like, hey, sure, they already sold. That's fine. Yeah, but yeah, Reddit is my troublemaking site.
I just want to give a quick thought on Instagram. It's not like they pay me or something, but I want to talk also about context. You know, you are in like Northern America, and you say like Instagram is almost dying. But for me here in Mexico, Instagram is still a big trend. Everyone is on Instagram. You meet someone new, and the next thing you hear next to his name is his Instagram tag. So for me, I've been doing this 7 months since last August. I started with all this epoxy crusader stuff, and it's the only social media where I actually engage with people. like actually meet other artists that who were willing to talk to me, because in other communities you send a question about something and they always answer like, I just figure it out, do it yourself, or they don't even answer nothing. And in these months, I've known almost all the 600 followers I have now, and for me, it's an awesome experience because I get to know 600 different people from around the world. And also that led me to this conversation, which by the way is amazing. And I've already learned about hard wax and Reddit and a lot of stuff, which by the way I won't be able to do so if I didn't start typing hashtags on the search of Instagram. So for me, that's a good side. It depends on the context and on the part of the world you are in, because most of these communities are not getting along too well in their different parts of the country. I get now to talk with some guys in Brazil. They love resin toys there. Here in Mexico, resin toys is not that good thing. We love bootlegs, but as Cody says, Sofubi is taking over everything, even though Funko is Sofubi. Just because it's a fancy Japanese word that sounds cool doesn't make them better. You know? But also, when I go to toy fairs, the big trend here in Mexico is vintage toys. So if you go there with your resin, art, design toys, mostly nobody trying to look at you if you're not selling vintage motu, which by the way here is the bomb. Everyone is trying to collect motu and some Ninja Turtles, because being a collector is now a big trend, you know. So sometimes I wonder how much of these ideal customers are just people that hop on the train of hashtag and collecting, or hashtag hunter, hashtag big hole and stuff, rather than people who actually like the stuff you do, the stuff you make, and pour from the same nostalgia that for me, by the way, everyone looks are the same. We're contemporary people.
It's a good point that Epoxy just made about like remembering that like it's not just the US, it's not just Canada, you know, it is the whole world. And you know, there's plenty of people, we talked about this before, that like with like the gorilla bike man, right? That like there are people that grew up without, you know, they didn't grow up with the toys. They knew about them, but they couldn't get them. So there's like a delay with different areas of the world. And it's good to remember, like, you know, that goes back again, think about like who are you, what kind of fan do you want to like kind of embrace as like the people you want to kind of target to. And that, you know, we can get caught up in our own drama here in the US and forget that like, you know, there is a whole other world of people and collectors and people who are just learning about stuff and just getting Instagram and just getting access to things. And, you know, it's a whole like world opening up for them. So
Yes, and also you catch the trend on some things. Something that surprised me a lot is that these figures, the dinosaurs figures, were actually made first in Brazil, but now this guy, I forget his name, on Instagram is making a rerun of the figures he sculpted digitally, and they are awesome, and it's like a big trend, and that makes a lot of people turn to see Brazil again, just to fetch those toys, just to fetch someone who knows something about those toys. And you don't get, well, in my case personally, in my opinion, you don't get any of that information if you're not on Instagram. Instagram, you just put a couple of hashtags and you actually engage with someone who is willing to tell you about that thing. Also, something that surprised me a lot is this I'm gonna call it trend, with the works of Partner Studios and Scott Hensey, the guys who made the Ninja Turtles figure line. I met Scott Hensey in Mexico a couple of years ago when he came for a comic convention, and he was surprised that for the most part of his active years and his whole work, he has never been uh, a celebrity, which by the way now he's kind of turning into one, because now everybody's turning to see, oh, this guy made the Ninja Turtles. Oh, this was the studio who made the Ninja Turtles. And in some live over the week, he was telling this exact same thing, that I never thought that I was going to be interviewed for the work I did 35 years ago. It's much about the context of, or the moment you talk about the things and the people start engaging information about the same thing. I think it's for in one side territory speakingly, but in other side a lot of context of the people who engage with these same ideas or same goals. I until this week I never heard about hard wax, and now I've heard it 50 times since Monday. And now I want hard wax too. Hashtag hard wax.
I mean, it's a really good point about, how we also need to be, very conscious of what types of art are trending in other countries. But along the same lines, we also need to be, I think, probably a little bit conscious of what social media platforms are even available in countries, or rather not available in certain countries in the world, which, may very well force us, if we're trying to have the most, the broadest reach possible to potential fans and customers, is, we might need to be, unfortunately having to be on 50 million different platforms, and even some that aren't common in the US, in order to reach people that, I'm sure there are countries in the world that are just like, no Instagram, they just don't use the platform. It's not popular. But this, obscure, platform is in, whatever particular country. So, it might be one of those scenarios that, there is no ideal single solution for us all, is that, we just have to, go out and, use everything. Around my office over the years, it's always been referred to as, okay, I've got to put down what I'm working on currently. It's time to go feed the beast, meaning I need to sit down and start generating some online, website, social media posts, and it is what it is. It's its own little separate, it's like, yes, it's, my responsibility. I have to take the pet of social media. I have to walk him, feed him, make sure his water bowl's filled, and that's just is the way it is. So
I'd be curious how you tap into that, like the Mexican, the Brazilian market, because personally, I don't know what hashtags are trending currently with their content of this regard. Some of it might even be language specific that I have no idea. I know Pakatoiko will often say to me like, "Eno koshiro." Well, that actually means like in it with the dogs. Well, I'm not going to know to put that hashtag for any of the homies and make sure that that's going to actually hit a particular group of people that are in like that demographic. And when I do look at like the data from Instagram, it's hard to want to suddenly realize where to cater that content when you're seeing that. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but even as a Canadian, I've got like 16% as Canadians, and then I've actually got like 67% as Americans as my follower base. So then what's strange is you'll hear Pocket Toyco be like, man, a buddy from Brazil mentioned that he learned about my toys through a Crumbs Blunt video. But you're sitting here being like, I don't know how I hit you. I don't know what metric or which hashtag I used that somehow got a dude into toys in Brazil to come to that page. So it ends up becoming like, do you have to put like Mexican bootlegs? If you put Mexican bootlegs, is that people expecting that you're going to have like an actual like Mexican bootleg, or are they expecting that like you're actually selling bootlegs to Mexicans? It becomes very convoluted and complicated. I'd almost be curious if it's worth kind of saying like, what do you use in Epoxy Crusader? What do you find? How are you finding people? What hashtags are you using?
Well, if it's an actual question, I use hashtags like art toy, design toy, bootleg, resin toy, resin made, resin custom made, resin prototype, resin cast, resin. I try to get a haul of a bunch of hashtags, which by the way I wasn't sure to use until this friend of mine told me I must do. Uh,
Does anybody here geographically hashtag? Like, does anybody here ever put in, like, I'll put in America's soft vinyl because I know that like America now makes soft vinyl. Does anybody do that with like Brazilian, Mexican, Hungarian, Polish?
I get a little more regional localized with some of my hashtags sometimes just because I happen to live in a very popular city for tourism. So I, often will just tag the city just purely out of the fact that I know everybody and their cousins searching for that for other reasons. But hey, if they happen to, land on my post, great. Hopefully I can use it to convert them into a follower. So I don't think that regionally, I don't think it hurts. I don't know how effective it may or may not be if you're talking on a, national basis, if you're hashtagging. And then I'd have a follow-up question for y'all is going on to yet another tangent. Sorry. Does anybody ever check out the yearly list of banned hashtags and keep an eye on those? Because sometimes, a lot of them make a lot of sense of, okay, yeah, it's overused. It's, always, one of those hashtags that are used to entrap people, getting their attention. But there's a lot of ones that really, sometimes are very surprising of, oh, you banned that? That's unexpected. And, I'm glad I looked. It might have been something I might have just happened to have, tried to use unwittingly. Like, I've seen years like the word Thanksgiving tends to be a banned hashtag. I don't know why. But
I think banning hashtags has to do with like, because when you do something like Thanksgiving, you're talking like 220 million, billion, whatever posts go onto that, and it like shuts down things because like it's so much is happening on there that things can get hidden as well, and it's also a way to stop things. Like there's a guy that follows me, acid_king, and he for sure sells acid. That's all he does. But he used to hashtag things like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that's how they're able to stop those things. I think too, I talked to Hoodwink Toys about hashtagging. The idea that we want the most people to see a hashtag, like this is the question that we pose, right? So if I use like, and I do this still, like let's see what happens. But if you put like bootleg toy, or if you put toy artistry, or you put, I don't know, vinyl toy, and it says that there's 25 million posts under that hashtag, do you think that your shit is better than 25 million other posts? Probably not. And here's another thing. Very few people follow hashtags. Like I follow one hashtag, and I don't generally go looking through hashtags. So not on top of the fact that you might have to beat out 25 million other posts, you also have to like hope that other people are looking for that hashtag. So hashtags play this weird role where you have to find this middle ground of, it needs to be between like 1,000 and 10,000 in there, but then also something that people are going to want to search regularly. And it's tough. Like they have whole apps based on like, here's 30 hashtags based on toys, and they will send it to you.
Hoodwink's Toys took that from our Rainbow Live Q&A. It's a very great tip that Rainbow Young gave to everybody.
So I have one point. I'm like overstayed. I gotta run here in a minute. But in terms of localization, internationalization, I think there's an interesting thing that happens, especially within our community, wherein the actual products are typically dollar value very cheap, But then as soon as you hit international borders, it becomes like exponential, right? Like just sending to Mexico from here, all of a sudden, something that's shipping is just like essentially 350 plus packaging becomes like, $25, $30 just to get it, it literally closer than half the people that I've sent it to, but just across the border, right? So like these are like I wonder how much that impacts the localization of these communities. And then like if they're marketing within those other ones, like I see a lot of like a Spanish language the art toys like accounts like all over, just looking through suggested accounts, things like that, their profile descriptions and hashtags they use, like it's not from the US, right? And it's interesting to me how big it seems to be in lots of other places, the UK especially as well. I see a lot from there. But then like I don't know how you actually effectively do commerce across those boundaries, because it becomes untenable to buy a $7 toy that is going to end up costing $35 in shipping just to get it there. Like that's just not reasonable, right? So
If you allow me just a quick thought about it, I talking about the prices, I was thinking precisely that, because for me sending and shipping things throughout the border is kind of expensive, but on the scale of expenses versus earnings, I sometimes get like even. Mostly because let me talk about a friend of mine. He make excellent resin toys. I really love his stuff. And here he makes 15 to 20 pieces for $30, I think, $30, $40. And he was amazed that on my first run of figures, I priced them at 20. He was like, man, what? That's expensive for us on the exchange. The money exchange, it's very expensive. And I was like, I've dig out through Instagram and noticed that this is like the base price for some figures, and I don't have a problem in getting even with the shipment and stuff. So, but on the other hand, once I talked to Pocket Toy, the guy in Brazil, and I was very excited to make a trade with him, and he was like, "No, man, no, sorry. I did it once, and it was heavy expensive to me, so I decided to never again make a trade with someone for some figure. I'm trying to sell these ones because the shipment it's very expensive, and I don't get any earnings about it. And then I wonder how much those guys like the emo and the other guy who's Spanish, and they make this awesome custom Ninja Turtles custom, how much they really earn because of the shipment. And also I see this all unboxings where they ship these big boxes full of things, and I always think, man, that's an expensive shipment. So territorially speaking, I believe that we have this opportunity to know from other lands and the exchange rate of this swapping toy community, but we also limit ourselves to think in, in a specifically range of customers and actions. For me, it's like always thinking in US and Canada. Surprises me when someone from other parts of the world reaches me, but it seems like it's all concentrated in North America, mostly because all the pop culture came from there, or the big amount of pop culture that influenced all this stuff comes from North America. I was let me say this because I was thinking about it when I saw the Barrio Boba figure and the tag that this is the way. I thought that Barrio Boba was Mexican, but then I found out he's at El Paso, Texas, and that really it kind of surprised me because I was thinking how this guy in Texas has this idea of the way, the work and the uses of it, how he came to it. It's not like it's impossible, but in this international thing we're talking about, it's kind of surprising sometimes. Not just when you come across things like Sofubi or hashtags that are in specific languages. Like there's a lot of Russian hashtags, which, but either way I don't understand, but this seems to be the bomb in the part of the world. But you come across all these common ideas that the community has throughout these whole things of the hashtags. That's sorry if I'm rambling. I just want to express this, that the context of the social media, in this case Instagram, depends and varies from different parts of the world, and sometimes the big fun of it is that you actually get to engage with people in other parts of the world throughout these hashtags, rather than just sending posts on Reddit or Facebook or other places where you won't get any answers at all.
Yeah, I'll chime in on the local branding or tagging or whatever. Instagram is the only social media platform I'm active on. If and you guys were mentioning, try to get out to other platforms to increase your following and all that other stuff. But as it is, I am accused all the time of constantly being on my phone, and that's just and sometimes I am. I'll, especially if I'm having a claim sale or whatnot, I'm on that phone making sure to respond to DMs and claims and everything else. And so I don't Facebook, but my sister does. And there's a local toy collectors group that on Facebook, and my sister joined for me. So every time I have a claim sale, I make sure and send my sister pictures and say, hey, let the people in the toy group know that I've got a sale, and they can contact me through Instagram. And I think it's funny because those same people that have Facebook accounts don't have Instagram accounts. So there's that whole, it's owned by the same company, but not everybody has the same thing. And then usually it's a tough crowd, man. I mean, you've seen my figures; they're only about 2 inches tall, but before the pressure pot came on, they're hand cast, they're hand painted. To try and paint a 2-inch figure in as much detail as I try to get in, they start lowballing you. You want $12.50 for that thing? I'd give you $5, and it's hard for me to not try and cuss them out, and say I can't do that. It's too much time and too much energy and everything else. So I as much as I try to do it locally, and then I also post on local selling apps like OfferUp, right? OfferUp, you can post to say that you have these figures, and again, it's that whole thing where people try to lowball you on the work that you've done. So I mean, it's one of those things where yes, I want to sell my stuff, but at the same time, I'm not relying on it for income or whatever. And if you want to buy my stuff, this is what I've got, and this is the price I have. And if you don't, hey, that's cool. But I try to make sure that I answer DMs. So if I post something or I get a DM, I do my best to try to answer it. If I have any other kind of posts, whether it's posting bootlegs that I get in, or if it's a custom paint job that I did and somebody comments on it, I'm going to try to reply to that comment, because I want you to know, I want you to feel that, I value your time as much as you do mine. So thanks for reaching out. I appreciate your comment. And I either reply and say thanks, or if you're asking a question, I'll do my best to answer it. And, and hopefully that kind of sticks around. So, I have a private Instagram where I'm a Boba Fett collector. So I have all my Boba Fett collection on there. And I get requests all the time because it's a private account. So I'll do a little lurking on their thing. And if it's somebody that they're following 10,000 accounts already and they want to follow mine, I mean, I don't post that often because I've gotten just about everything I want to collect. But even if I do accept them, my posts are going to get lost on their feed. You know, if they are on Instagram all the time and they're trying to go through their feed or whatever, and I post something, there's no guarantee that they're going to get on there. You know, I have the same mentality in my private account as I do with this one. You know, I do my best to reach out, to answer those questions, to respect your DMs, to, you know, look at your comments and everything else. So it's one of those, at least for me anyway, you know, I'm going to go with Instagram as long as I can. Again, I'm doing this for fun. And I like looking at other people's stuff. And I like learning about how people do things a certain way, what works, what doesn't work. You know, why try and reinvent the wheel if somebody's already got, you know, 4 versions of the wheel out and the 4th version is the best, and they're willing to share that, you know, knowledge and experience with you, then guess what? That's where I'm going, and that's what I'm doing. So you know, it's just one of those things. And as far as, you know, using the phrase, this is the way, it was just you know, it was funny because the Mandalorian, that's
It's an
their
excellent
phrase.
pun.
Yeah, their phrase, you know, this is the way. And so I was like talking with a buddy of mine, and he's like, dude, instead of way, you know, change it to the Mexican cuss word way. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's going to be the hashtag I use on most of my posts. It's on all the baggies when I sell the figure. And I think, as far as I know, if you do a search in Instagram for that hashtag, my stuff's the only one that's tagged with it, as far as I know.
It is, yes, it is.
Hey guys, I don't want to interrupt or take anyone's time, but I got a dip. It was awesome talking to y'all. Epoxy Crusader, Barrio, Suchi, great to meet you guys. Aaron, Jonathan, Crumbs, awesome to talk to you guys again. So I'll see y'all later.
Nice to meet
All right,
you.
we'll see you, man. Have a good one.
Bye. Take it easy.
Really quickly, I think we're all pretty ready to wrap it up, but what I did find kind of interesting with the locations, just super quick. You mentioned that a lot of us seen on Instagram for the Mexican market, and that it's very popular over there right now. But at the same time, what I found interesting is you were talking about how it seems that a lot of the market wants to be still infiltrating the American market. If it seemed that there was actually a competitive or a large market for consumerism of this particular type of desirable product in Mexico, I feel that we would see more of the engagement, and you wouldn't be saying like, well, shucks, it's so much to try and ship to people to North America if there was actually a bootleg scene in Mexico, because it's the same as in Brazil and Iceland and UK and Australia, where the reality is every time they do a drop, they've got to try and picture, well, dang, most of the market is in the States. So that's where I feel it still gets hard, where it's like, it's totally what you're looking to get out of Instagram from a brand marketing consumerism standpoint when you're trying to look to monetize or bring the most value back into your company. I'd be curious to see if those places are bringing monetizational value back into the community. But it's great if all of a sudden that Instagram is still huge in Mexico, but it's not great if no Mexicans actually want, or sorry, oh my goodness, it's not good if that commerce group doesn't actually want to be purchasing from North America.
More than the monetization, I think, and this has to do with what Bola said, the value of the actual object. People here doesn't value the thing you do with your hands as much as they do with a Marvel toys, with a vintage toy. The thing about doing bootlegs with resin or plastic or something handmade is not that valuable for the collectors of toys here in Mexico, for example. And I sometimes think that this happens in other parts of the world, and that's why we try to reach the American market, because they seem to value more the handmade stuff. Just just to say that it's something that you do out in your garage and you paint it by hand and it's like a small run, it adds value to the thing. And here, I've been in the same position that Barrio Boba has been. When you put your things there in this little convention or toy fair, everybody asks, why so expensive? Even though you are just trying to get back the money you spend on the materials you use or the paint you use. And surprisingly enough, that doesn't happen too often in North America. In these 7 months, I haven't received any complaint about of the price that I put on the things I make. And here they always ask me why so expensive every time. So I think it's both. It's something that goes with the market and goes with this thing I usually call collector's culture. Here, well, somebody will throw me stones for this, but we don't have the actual collecting culture that there's in North America. We do collect toys, we do collect comic books, we do collect video games and stuff, but not all the people do it because they really love to. They do it because of the trend of the market. Do you know about the Mexican Spider-Man? No? Well,
The one with the snake?
no. Throughout the 80s, Marvel has a Mexican editorial have a Marvel Comics license, but they cannot out the demand of the outgoing comics because of the shipment. So here in Mexico, they get a Mexican penciler to make Spider-Man comics. Some of these comics have different stories from the ones in the United States. These comics have been around here like forever, since the 80s. But one day, UK collector, I think, found out this thing that I'm telling you, and he went nuts about knowing that there was a Mexican Spider-Man, a hand-drawn Mexican Spider-Man, and started to collect all these vintage comics, these vintage Mexican comics we have, and the prices go sky high. Last time I noticed they auctioned one of these in $16,000, which by the way is a lot of money. And at that moment, all the Mexican collectors turn and look to the Spider-Man. And I was like, man, we have this like forever, and now you're looking at him because some other guy in the UK just noticed it. And I think this goes all the time here in Mexico with all the things. Motu, Star Wars, etc., etc., etc. So when you try to hop on with something handmade, you just have to compete with all these trends of not culture collecting that doesn't add value to the thing you do, that always try to compete with the industrial thing, that it's always reference with the industrial thing, and that's a bummer. That's it goes with the territory, but also goes with the lack of actual culture of collecting and caring for the value of the stuff. I've been thinking about this a lot because also for me goes with this brand idea of I need to think about the brand, but in terms of other land, of other consumers, of other products, of other people who might like things I do in other contexts and in other regions from the same social media. So it's very complicated once you add or pour the context stuff of the thing.
Yeah. If there's one thing I've learned in this scene, an artist can certainly build a piece up, and they can also very quickly and easily tip it down. The artist can definitely bring a lot of intent behind a piece. I actually love, I'm going to try and wrap it up here, Chicken Burger Disco actually brought in that, you know, at the end of the day, it's really hard, and why you get this confrontation with the pricing is that a painting, folks expect a price range. Art, the toy buyer, often sees a toy and might not understand that it's a painting and a sculpture. You're getting a deal, a 2-for-1. But I would actually disagree, only because I feel sometimes you're getting 0 for 1. Because at the end of the day, like, what's an art, what's toy, depending on the person. And again, just as easily as a brand or a person can build it up, I'm sure there are certain people out there that if you came out and you made certain comments or declarations, that piece of art just loses all value to you. Yeah. So again, like we talked about this before, art versus toy, nobody can really decide. There's some kids show recently where the kid even says like, art can't be decided because it's different for everybody. And I'm sitting there being like, F you, kid, for being smarter than me and a bunch of other people that sat there talking about it the other day. Yeah, end of the day, I think that's the good point, though, is that it's just really hard to try and convince somebody that it was built with your hands. And at the end of the day, too, it's really hard to say, well, I built this with my hands. Why can't you just expect that that's why this is the value it is? And I feel it's really tough, too, because oftentimes makers will try and go towards, well, it's not a commercial toy. It's not a factory-made toy. It's really tough because some of your peers are really, really, really good at making pieces. Barry Boba mentioned, like, he put some extreme detail into the paint ups on those pieces. They might only be 2 inches tall, but when somebody else is sitting there, if they're going, well, my piece is 3 inches and I would never dream of charging that, you have to look at the value in that piece, and it's going to be different for every person that gets that piece, because like you said, that extreme detail in that paint up might mean more to one person than to somebody else. So yeah, I love that. I think that's a good place to end, and I think we're all pretty well ready to pass out on this Friday evening, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in, participating, chiming in, and I'll try and get better at navigating who's talking for the next one. So much, guys.
It's been a lot of fun. It's amazing to know every one of you. Greetings from Mexico. This is the way, Barrio Boba. Hope we can do something.
That's the exit out from now on. Everybody just has to do that. Have a good night, everybody.